are joined here today by Mo, who is the owner of My Bliss, which is a contraception company designed to help bridge the gap between women and birth control. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And for people that are watching, could you explain more about what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So me and my partner Joel basically decided to create a condom company, which seems mad and out of nowhere. Like people always assume like I'm a sex expert that came into this. Absolutely not. It purely came about because I had an awful experience on hormonal contraception and discovered that so many other women feel this way. And me and my partner just decided to try and find a contraception method that we felt was more shared and obviously didn't have side effects, and not one partner was like suffering the burden of contraception. So after looking for all the different options, at the moment we actually felt that condoms was the best option because it has no side effects, and it is shared between you and your partner. So we basically started to use condoms, and then we then realized that all the condom brands was totally marketed towards men. The design was just bizarre because you're thinking women feel uncomfortable carrying condoms, buying condoms. Why would they make them so bold and bright and uncomfortable to buy? So we couldn't find anyone else doing it. So out of nowhere, we just decided to do it ourselves. So so My Bliss basically just sells condoms that are designed for women's body. So really good ingredients, nothing that's going to irritate or cause infection. Because a lot of women actually associate condoms with like irritation, but it's not actually condoms. It's the different brands. A lot of bigger brands put in a lot of ingredients that are just not necessary at all and cause a lot of infections with women. And we're marketed to be really stylish and discreet, so you can carry these condoms and no one will know what they are. They're completely designed differently. So that's what we do.
Okay, that's amazing. So before we get into your amazing journey as an entrepreneur, I would like to rewind a little bit and go back to your childhood. Would you say that you were always creative, and did you know that you was going to like maybe start your own business one day?
No, absolutely not. I actually remember being in high school and we had like a business. I think it was like they were just trying out like this line of business thing, and I was actually told like I'm really bad at it, and I should never be an entrepreneur. So that's obviously stayed with me for a long time. So it's weird that I did become that anyway. But I think I was creative, but always in a very kind of academic way. I was never good at like art or anything, but I've always my parents are very kind of creative, so maybe it's kind of like dribbled down into me a little bit. But it very much came out of nowhere. And I think my real push would probably be I've always been very strong-willed and very open about like kind of female issues. So I think I see myself more as kind of like an activist in that way, rather than it kind of, do you know what I mean, coming from like an entrepreneurial place. It's kind of more come from like an activist, kind of wanting to make women's experience better kind of place.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like when it comes to sex and women, it's always treated as like more of a taboo thing. We're not really taught to kind of be open with topics like that. So
Absolutely.
Oh, it's okay. So the idea of like using birth control, it's almost like under the table type of thing. Like, even though it's assumed that most of us use it, it's not something that we have as open conversations.
No, I think what I find really troubling is if you actually get to the root of it, I think there is still a thing in our society about people not feeling comfortable with women having sex. I think it's obviously we do and it's everywhere, but at the same time, I think there is this kind of subliminal thing where people are still a bit like uncomfortable, especially women talking about it or being open about it. There's definitely a kind of reaction to that. And I think that still filters through when women, like we surveyed lots of different women and they felt uncomfortable buying condoms, and you got to look into that and be like, why would they? And that is the root of it. They also carrying condoms, which is so important. With the different STD rates, it is so important that women are carrying condoms and looking after their own protection, because I know there's so many times, and I've got so many stories of you relying on hoping that the male partner will have them and not. So it's just, I think it's really important that obviously all the burden should be on women, but I think it's really empowering to be able to look after your own sexual wellness and sexual health. But again, I do think the problem that we really need to solve is really changing that belief that is in society, because it is mad to think that there is that still thing of people thinking it's taboo for women to have sex, but it is still around. It's absolutely mad.
Yeah, you would think that in 2023 we're a little bit more liberated, but
yeah,
that unfortunately that is not the case. I think that having online resources now definitely makes it easier, like places like Amazon and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it is still very taboo. So when you surveyed women, what were the sort of questions you were asking, and what was the outcoming results of them?
So it said, do you feel stigmatized buying condoms? And I think off the top of my head, I think it's like 76% of women felt stigmatized whilst buying condoms. And these were, we actually went in and asked if some of these women would actually have like one-on-one calls with me. And obviously I've got to keep them anonymous. I'm not anonymous, yeah. And but yeah, when I actually looked into it, these were like really like strong-willed, confident women, and you're not happy to talk to me about sex, but then admitting they do feel uncomfortable buying condoms, which is quite shocking. Yeah. We also said, would you prefer a condom brand that was made by women for women? And again, I think it was like 80% of women would prefer to buy from a brand like that, and at that time we didn't even reveal my bliss. There was nothing about it. Like, it was very much just asking those kind of questions, and it was overwhelming that people were wanted. And it's understandable, I think we take for granted like what condoms are. Like in our head, I think you associate condoms with the kind of design, and it does like make it quite juvenile, and you associate it like something that you use when you're a teenager, not when you're an adult. So yeah, so basically we got lots of data like that. I think we also found that there's a really good statistic. I'm trying to think what it was. It's like 80%, but I think we also were asking questions about hormonal contraception as well. And I think around 80% of women would prefer to be on non-hormonal contraception. But then when we surveyed, I think it was like 70% were on hormonal contraception. So it's quite staggering to think that many women don't want to be on it, but are. But I think that comes through again. There is, as well as women feeling it, like the taboo around having sex, there's also the kind of push that the responsible method of protecting your sexual health is hormonal contraception. It's seen as a responsible choice. And I think if you were to admit that you weren't on hormonal contraception and you use something like condoms, you do receive that kind of backlash as if you're not being safe. And like, yeah, so, but yeah, it was the results were staggering.
Yeah, it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm not surprised, and I think that's one thing I'm really focused on for the next year. It was one of our big things was to try and change this conversation, and also raise awareness that women didn't have to be on hormonal contraception and there are other methods. I think that kind of belief that you have to be on 2 forms of contraception, and do you know what I mean, if you're not, you're going to get pregnant, is still around. And condoms are 98% effective. You are safe. Obviously you can use that with another method like fertility tracking, which is really popular at the moment. But yeah, I think that people are still, like, women are still scared, even though that would like not have any side effects and maybe give them a greater kind of like life experience than having to have all the side effects of hormonal contraception.
Yeah, definitely. So when we last had a conversation, we were talking about how our parents can obviously influence the way how we go on to view sex, because they are some of the first people that we ever have these conversations with. So how much impact do you think that has on people when they then become older? Like, do you think that parents do influence the way how people's attitudes are towards sex, or do you think it's something that we just have to take ownership of for ourselves?
No, I think it's a massive thing. Like, talking to my own mum, she was saying that she didn't enjoy sex for so long because her mum always made her think it was a bad thing and something that she shouldn't be doing. So it's always stayed with her. And I think I've never had that, and my mum was always really positive with me about sex, and I've always had like really good experiences, and I think that's so much to her credit, because yeah, I think she was very much, I don't want my daughter to suffer in the way I have. And when I talk to like my friends, I'm surprised by how many of them are uncomfortable having these conversations with me. And I can, because obviously my friends, I have met their parents, so, and I can tell like the sort of people, I'm like, yeah, I can see where that's come from. And I think it's so important, like when we were talking as well, how important it is for us in the future, like your daughter, and potentially in the future me, like how we would definitely want to really think about how we'd have those conversations and make sure there's no kind of like shame or anything like that associated with it, because it does stay with you for so long. And I think it's really important as well how we educate our boys, because when we're like surveying the stigma around women having sex, a lot of it is coming from men, and a lot of women, like they're aware of it, that kind of judgment that, like I hate to use, like words like slut just because you're carrying condoms, which is an oxymoron, doesn't make sense, that carrying condoms ensures your safety. But yeah, I think it is so important, and I'm quite excited and quite hopeful for our generation to see. I think we're going to be really good parents in this area, and I think I'm excited, to see how our children are different to us.
Yes, I mean, you hear a lot of people talking about the different generations on social media. I definitely think, though, that the millennials and the Gen Z parents are going to change the game. Yeah, because we crave that communication that we never had with our own parents, and we're going to take those lessons and apply it with our own children. There's a quote that I saw years ago, or a few years ago, and it basically said something like, be careful how you speak to your child, because your voice becomes their inside voice.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And I think that's why, if we've had negative experiences growing up, we have to almost unlearn it. It doesn't come easy. We can't just like shake it off. We have to do the work to get rid of that voice, because it's been kind of ingrained in us, and we have to kind of take on our own teachings and say, you know what, this isn't right, because I definitely felt like it was very difficult to have those types of conversations. So for me, it was almost like learn as I go along. And it was very stigmatized. And I feel like it's definitely, I would rather have that conversation with my daughter, because I would never want to put her in a position where she has to turn to her teenage friends and say, hey, look, what do I need to do? Or, because the thing is, I don't feel like children can teach other children anything.
Oh, no.
So we have to keep our children safe. And I feel like a lot of the parents that were born in the 1960s and beforehand, they kind of have that belief of like, well, I don't want them to have sex, so I'm not going to talk about it. Yeah. But that's not how life works. Sex doesn't stop happening because you ignore it. Yeah. But I think they are really a product of their time. Yeah. And I feel like we are a lot more open to having conversations in the open air.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've had the same experience, but I've noticed within people I've grown up with, the people that parents are very much like don't have sex, like very kind of helicopter parenting with them. Those are the people like once they got a bit older, they're probably more what's the right word, careless with their sexual health, whilst like people like me who very much had that kind of conversations with my parents very early on and weren't made to feel shameful about sex. I didn't have problems like that, and it just shows how important it is. Like, you're not protecting your child by kind of trying to get them to not have sex, because eventually they are, and you just send them out into the world of no education. And I think it continues that. I especially think women have so much to unlearn in that area as well. Like, unlike men, so much to unlearn, and so much sexism. And I think when you think of this sex industry and like how much porn is out there at the moment, how much women have to unlearn and things that's put on them is just absolutely staggering. And if to go into that world without your parents having already explained to you like what to expect, what is, especially what is normal, I think not a lot of young people know now like what is normal, and it is something that you do need to be told, especially as a woman, because we are having these conversations now about like Me Too. Women need to, like, young girls need to know what's okay and what's not okay. And I think we were talking about is our mums both worked in kind of like the social care industry, and we were really lucky that they were very on top of that. And I think it's really important that is part of the kind of like parenting you have in your like teens, maybe a little bit earlier?
Yeah, 100%. Like I feel like the world is chaotic enough.
Yeah.
We don't want to then send our children. We're basically, by not having certain conversations with your children, you're basically sending them out into the world without any armor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you can't stop things from happening. You can't stop them from growing up. You can't stop them from facing sexism. You can't stop them from facing potentially racism. But
Yeah.
if you give them the right tools and equipment that they need, then you are setting them up to put up a great fight.
Yeah.
And you're also giving them the tools to navigate difficult situations as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that is the truth of parenting. I think people think you have to, like, protection is keeping them in all the time and making sure like nothing ever bad happens to them. But you can't stop that forever. And yeah, exactly. The most important parenting is giving them that armor so that whatever they have to face, at least they understand it and prepared for it, definitely.
Yes. So speaking of like sexism, you were mentioning that you founded your company with your partner.
Mm.
Now, I would like to know how you are both treated when you go into meetings, you go into business meetings, you're sitting down, you're talking about what it is that you guys do. How differently do you get treated compared to your partner? Have you noticed a difference?
Definitely. So I don't think I had experienced that much overt sexism before until I started this company. I think especially with this industry, it is quite shocking. We've had so I'm like the face of the company, and I'd say I do quite a lot of it. So it's kind of really my baby, and we were told that Joel would need to be in meetings with me for me to be taken seriously. I've been in investment meetings where they'll only talk to him, they'll only ask him questions, and it's really frustrating when you're the one doing the day-to-day. And when you see like the further statistics about that, like only 1% of female founded companies get VC investment, which is just, again, it's in this day and age, what's gone wrong there? That is so terrible, and I think there should be more light thrown on that. And then we've had people giggling in meetings. Like these are like, I would say they're about like 6-year-old white men laughing about the subject, or like, I'm not there to talk about sex, I'm there to talk about women suffering for years on hormonal contraception, and like how unfair it is that we have to not only having to have our menstrual cycles, but we also have to go on these hormone contraception that cause like quite a lot of times quite altering side effects. Like I've had so many people reach out to me telling me their stories, and like some people being hospitalized. Obviously those are very extreme cases, but this is a serious subject and something that like more and more light will be thrown on it in the future. And to have someone sniggering, or like there was one thing where we had to kind of give an idea of like profit margins and stuff. So we said like on average how many times people have sex a year, and to hear people like joking about those statistics and stuff like that is quite shocking. And yeah, you just think these are the people giving people opportunities. Like it's that as a reflection just worries me, and I can see why so many people struggle, and from different communities so many people struggle when these are the people giving out investment and basically choosing where our industries progress. And I think that is one reason why the sexual health industry hasn't progressed. I think once the pill was brought out, which is obviously amazing, there hasn't been much more innovation. It's almost like that tick that box, that's solved, when it hasn't been solved, and it is a problem that so many women have had to suffer with. So yeah, I'm hoping that through people like me and other female founders, hopefully we can get in a position in the future to be able to put more money into this industry and really make a change.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to a couple of things that you mentioned there. Now you said something about, was it VC?
VC, but yeah.
So could you explain what that is, please? Because I wasn't sure what it is, and just to sort of help any listeners that were unsure as well.
I am gonna Google it because I think I know what it means, but you just like venture capital, that's it. Mm-hmm. So that's more, let me just double check because I don't want to make give your listeners wrong information, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, so it's basically private equity investors with high growth potential. So it's basically like private equity investors that want kind of like an equity stake in businesses. So obviously in that situation, you're getting a lot of money. These aren't grants. This is like a lot of money. This kind of like really makes businesses. So I just think only 1% of female founders get that kind of funding is just shocking. Like, to give you an example, we were in a position where we were in a talk for 6 months with an investment company, and they were going to give us 250,000, and at the time the director was a woman, and then just as like things were about to be signed, the director changed from basically from a woman to a man, and then he no longer wanted to invest in these kind of products. So,
and you think that goes back to the sexism? Exactly.
It's kind of the perfect example and sums up what is happening with investment. That would happen when you're about to get it signed, and they're only interested in investing in tech. Well, and that is the prime example of why this industry isn't progressing. I think we're not wanting more because we don't realize there can be more, but we are not given what is. Do you know what I mean? There's just not. I'm trying to think how to just put this in words. There's just not enough attention brought to this area, and I think if we knew where we could be with it and how things could be so much easier for women, it is, and it's down to just people not being interested in funding it.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that, because women are always talking about how they're disproportionately treated in loads of different areas, but let's just focus on business for this aspect. And you've just made a really good point there, like that it's literally harder for women to even get an investment because the people that are basically deciding their fate are not even their target audience.
So
that's very interesting. And I think, why is that? Why do you not get more people on board who may be your target audience, or at least have more of an understanding of who your target audience is, so that it can be a more informed decision? Because when you told me about your brand, I thought it was perfect. It was giving women their power back, essentially. And with your products, are people able to like order them online, or is it all like, how does it work?
So we have some retail partnerships at the moment. So we're currently on SheSpot and Sephora, who are both doing great work, especially SheSpot. So basically they only sell like female founded sexual wellness products, and they especially they test them all, and it's all the things that women need. It is just amazing. So like there is hope. There is other companies doing things like that. So we also send them on our website, so you can buy them like as a one-time purchase, but also do a subscription, because again, it's really important for us, for our customers, to not only not be in a situation where you forgot to buy condoms and you don't have any left, but also to stop that experience of women feeling comfortable buying condoms and having to, go into the shop and have to pick them up. So we've done a few things to hopefully make it easier.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can I just ask, when you find yourself in that sort of scenario where you're maybe starting to feel a bit uncomfortable and you feel like you're being treated differently due to being a woman, how do you then handle that situation? What do you do to kind of make life easier for yourself? Not that it should be your place to have to do that, but how do you deal with that?
Anger. I think I get it kind of like I get angry, but then it kind of fuels the business and kind of my motivation to keep going. There's times when and sometimes it's actually quite, I know it sounds like bizarre, but quite refreshing, because I think sometimes, and I bet it's the same thing with like racism as well. It's there. Like I've always known that there's these things about like sexism and things going on, but it's quite refreshing to have it actually said, because it's just like it's confirmed what I thought. So when the investment fell through, I was really annoyed, but at the same time I was thinking, well, that's good, because it wasn't meant to be, and I wouldn't want those kind of people involved in the business. But also, it was like almost funny, because it's just like, everything I read, because I obviously had to go to them with all the statistics about what it's like being a female founder, and to have those same people confirm those statistics. It's quite refreshing, because I can pinpoint now. I can say, look, this is what happened. I've got my own experiences. Although it's so infuriating, it's not like a feeling anymore. I can be like, look, these are the problems. And I know that sounds a bit bizarre, but sometimes it's worse when it's so subtle you can't really pick up on it. When it's in your face, you're like, right, that is bad, that's what we need to change. It's kind of, it's easy to face if you can point at it and actually go, like, I can tell anyone that story and everyone will be angry for me. And that is quite refreshing. It's as bizarre as that sounds. But I think as well, it's having Joel with me, because, yeah, he helps me get the anger out. And like, there was a time when we had an article out about business, which is I think it's 2021 now. But I was quite proud of it. I didn't like the headline. The headline they put as "woman who has cysts all over face," because when I was on hormonal contraception, I had cystic acne. Not particularly bad cystic acne, but yeah, so they put that title. But I actually really like the article. The article was really lovely about kind of like me and Joel being engaged and how we met when we were younger and being from the same village. It was really sweet. But then in the comments, there was like a woman calling me a prostitute, like a brothel owner.
For being a businesswoman.
Yeah, and then saying I have no morals. It is kind of, you kind of get angry, and then you kind of like, it's almost laughable to kind of face this kind of stuff. And I see, at the same time, I do see a lot of progression. Like when I talk to other female founders, just how amazing they are. And like being able to talk to you today, like these are things that make those things easier. And, you know, I can always just talk to my friends and like get angry about this stuff, but it's definitely helps sharing it, I'd say, definitely.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why like I wanted to like speak to you, because I feel like as a female podcast host, I almost feel like it's my duty to give a platform to women specifically. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that I would never interview men, because you know there has been a guy on my show before, but I just feel like our voices often people try to quiet them down. Yeah. And I feel like it's important to hear those stories. We need to hear women from different backgrounds with different experiences and different dreams and different aspirations who, you know, we need that variety, and we need to see what they're capable of, so that every single, you know, for younger girls that are coming up, they can look at each woman and say, hey, I could do that too. Yeah. And take from it what they need to take from it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And also just like pushing us to the forefront, you know, like pushing businesses and pushing women to the forefront, so that they can actually just take the floor and get the message out that they're trying to convey. I think what you're doing is very important, and I feel like our generation will be way more open about what it is that you're doing, because, you know, we are the children of the generation that would have grown up being told children need to be seen and not heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So even though they didn't treat us exactly like how they were treated, some of those, their parents were their inside voice.
Yeah, exactly. And they can't help it sometimes coming out.
No, exactly. That inner voice is what guided them throughout their lives. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's why it's so hard to shake it, because you really have to take a conscious choice. Yeah. And say, actually, what I have been taught for several years is not working for me. And then you almost have to like relearn and undo everything.
Yeah, that can be so challenging as well, because I think sometimes it's kind of frustrating that you have to do that unlearning, like on top of everything else in life. You've also got to unlearn everything. Like obviously it came from a good place with your parents, but it is sometimes frustrating. And I can't even imagine being from like our parents' generation, the kind of parenting they had is just, yeah. When I hear some of the stories about my grandma with my mum, it's just like, it's just terrible. So, and I don't think she's in that generation either who kind of unlearn it. They kind of, there's not that kind of influence to, like, I think we're quite lucky and grown up in an age, definitely with mental health being a big topic, that we kind of know that's not right, I can unlearn this. But that generation, I don't think they even have that. They very much, I think they know it's not true, but it always stays with them. And I do sometimes notice that generation, you can kind of see it come out of them a little bit, and you're like, that's not really you, that's your parents. But you're trying to hold it back. Yeah, I've noticed, like, I think one time I had a one night stand and she called me disgusting. And I remember being so shocked, because I was like, that wasn't my mum. Like, my mum's never been like that. Obviously, I've said she's so progressive. But I was quite shocked that she would say that. And we spoke later on, and she like was quite shocked. And like years later, she didn't really remember it. And she was quite shocked she said it. But again, we were talking about that, and it's very much her. She was saying like, it's my learning, I can't help it. And I think sometimes when you're quite shocked, it must be hard that it just sometimes comes out.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the first step, I suppose, is just to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And I think for the generation before us, it may be that they're too far, not too far gone, but it may be that that day may never come, where they wake up and they're like, actually, I could have done things completely different.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more our jobs now to kind of just seek community.
Definitely.
There's a lot of people who I've spoken to who were born in the 90s, and a lot of us were brought up with that same type of belief.
Yeah.
And we are all kind of turning to each other to say, hey, did you experience this? Yeah, I have too. How do you feel about this? And then a conversation gets going, and then you start to feel way less alone, because you realize that there's a lot of people who actually feel the exact same way that you do. And we are basically just trying to kind of get things right this time round, and set a different type of example. And we're having these like open conversations, and hopefully in 60 years time, if there's a young woman who is like trying to present her business idea in a room, there may be more diversity in that room. I think that's the real goal here, is to put diverse faces, different genders, different races, put them in positions of power so that they are able to make these decisions that impact everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And I love like a place for a podcast in these conversations as well. I think it's so good at like getting people to have these conversations, and also like weasel out a lot of like honesty and truth. Like I just think they're a really good platform for moving forward, especially with sexual health.
Yes, definitely. So in terms of like where you see your business structure going in the future, like how do you see your business going in a few years' time? Like what sort of messages would you like to sort of convey as time goes on, and how do you think it will sort of change?
So I've actually never told anyone this, so this is breaking, as it were. So we actually want My Bliss to be a lifelong brand. That's our biggest kind of ambition. So a lot of other condom brands, they kind of keep to the sexual wellness space, and we're not particularly interested in that. I think above everything else, we're concerned with health, and making sure that women have access to everything that kind of, because I think with a lot of women, there's a lot of different conditions where we kind of just live with it. Like when you think of endometriosis, I'm saying that, but yeah, endometriosis, PCOS. I'm sure all those things, you know what I mean though. A lot of women like suffer in silence. So our biggest endeavour is health, and also I think big conversations that are coming out at the moment is also struggles with fertility, menopause, and that's obviously so exciting. And My Bliss just wants to be part of those conversations. I think we want to make sure that we can help women from like puberty to like post-menopause and provide products for each stage. Another like big aim of ours is to be able to do like bundles for different stages. So like if you're wondering like for your teenage daughter and that she's having a first period and like, you don't know what to do, we would love the idea of having like a little bundle that has everything she'll need on those kind of like like information and education as well. And then like when you're going through fertility, like trying to conceive, like having your folic acid, also giving like education about what you should and shouldn't be doing. That is our big aim, and just making sure that women, I think so many times we have to do so much research around our own kind of like health problems, and a lot of times like we go to doctors and we're basically turned away. I think when you look at statistics as well on women pain, like compared to men's, and how doctors just do not listen to women in pain and they don't take it seriously. I think I definitely want to be a brand that helps women, especially with preventative health as well. I think that's really important, and preventing these kind of conditions from arising, which obviously comes like with vitamin supplements and making sure you're using the right products for you. So that is, I haven't told anyone yet, but that's our big aim, and obviously we're really excited to get in there, and hopefully it won't be too long. There's obviously constraints and struggles with like manufacturers, which I don't think people really tell you about starting a business. Is like it's really difficult to kind of fight for what you want your product to look like. So there obviously will be a lot of fights in the future. Like the condoms was such a fight because we wanted like the highest quality ingredients, and you're having to spend so much extra money to get the right product. So we expect a lot of fights, but hopefully we can get there.
Yeah, it's so interesting because as you were speaking there, so eloquently, by the way, you know, talking about all the different boxes and things that you want to do for your customers, it made me think to myself, this is more than just a website for contraception. Because, you know, on paper, you hear, okay, company sells condoms which are designed for women to buy. Like, first thing that people are going to think of is sex. And that's probably why that woman left that horrible comment. But, you know, not that I agree with it, obviously, but in her mind, she's thinking this woman is advertising sex, essentially. But the interesting thing is what you've just described is it's almost like a family company. It's sexual health. It's sexual health that you're talking about. And as crude as people want to be about it, every single one of us are here because of that.
It's quite shocking, isn't it? I keep thinking that. It's like, why is sex such a taboo? It's obvious. Like, it's fundamental.
Yeah, everybody that is here is a product of it. And actually, taking pride and care in your sexual health is one of the most sensible things you could possibly do.
Yeah.
If you are going to engage with it, why not protect yourself? Why not protect other people? And why not educate yourself as well as educate other people? And when you mentioned that you were thinking about starting a box for young girls that are starting their period, that is really where it does start. Because when a young girl gets their period, one of the first questions they might ask is, why am I even getting my period? And then parents have to have that conversation of, well, you know, this happens because, you know, women give birth and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how do women give birth? You know, how do they get, do you know what I mean? Like, that is really it's so interesting you say that because it's like a full circle moment.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I don't know why people separate period care and sexual health, because to me, they're obviously together. And I think what I struggle with as well is how so many industries fetishize sexual health. And I just see that as the problem. It's just as essential as period care. Like, why are they separated? We should be educating ourselves on both things at the same time. And I've never seen, I think that was one of the biggest aims to bring out period products, because I've never seen them together. And I think it's so interesting, and I think it's such a statement as well to show that, like, I think that's why I want to move to in the future, is just making it clear that these are essentials. Like, we want to be a women's lifestyle brand with health essentials, because period care, you know, vitamins, sexual health, it's all health essentials. It shouldn't be fetishized. It's not something that you have to buy from loads of different websites. Like, it should all be in one place, because they are just essentials. And by fetishizing sex, again, you making people, the industry won't progress, people feel uncomfortable talking about it, and that's what causes the problems. That's what causes, you know, like high STD rates, you know, women becoming pregnant at a stage where they're not ready. You know, this is all this conversation. So yeah, I'm quite excited for that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And as you were speaking as well, it made me realize that what we're experiencing now is based on historical events. So I don't know if you ever watched the show Mad Men. The TV series. So for anyone that's listening that's not watched it, it's basically a TV show about an advertising company set in the 1960s. And there's a couple of scenes, isn't there, where some of the women who aren't married go to their doctor to ask for birth control, which, you know, obviously that's just like a normal practice, normal routine now. And even now it could still feel awkward, to be honest. But back then it's like, if you were not married, if you didn't have a wedding ring on your finger, the doctor was looking at you like, in what world? Like, why are you here?
I remember there was a scene with Elizabeth Moss, I think that's her name. But he's being so patronizing and telling her like not to be naughty and everything, and being like, you have to be sensible if you're using this. And like, obviously I know, like, partly obviously it's the writers like trying to get you annoyed for her, but yeah, it is staggering that you should be seen as just like like naughty for doing that. And that's not that long ago. I think when we say like why is it still taboo around having sex, like it has not been so long ago that it was, and you know, the reaction was so much worse. Like I think for one it's probably good, like, and obviously not good, but it is we are quite progressive in some areas, and I think that is something to be quite happy about. And obviously now, like, you won't get that kind of reaction, but except if you do an article about condoms, and you will, but it's not that long ago, and
No.
I see those beliefs in a lot of people.
Yeah, and I feel like people who would have been young adults and teenagers during that time are still alive and well today.
Yeah, exactly.
So we still have those very old school mindsets, like walking around. But you know, my question to these people is, what is the alternative to being safe?
Yeah.
Like when it does come to sex, and I know that some people would say, well, you could just not have it until you're married and stuff, but I just feel like in 2023 that's just a very unrealistic expectation to have on a whole generation of people.
Yeah, also, like, this is what really infuriates me as well, is that sex is good for you. Like, it's not only, like, this is going to sound a bit wishy-washy, but obviously in a lot of cases it is like an expression of love. It's really good for you. It's like a form of connection. There is nothing apart from in those situations when obviously it's not reciprocated. It is something that is healthy and part of like a normal human experience. And again, I think it just comes down that fetishization of it, and it's not. It's like, I think that's why I was quite shocked by how many people expected me to be like a sex expert by talking in this space and having a company in this space, which I'm not at all. Like, I'm not. I don't go to like sex parties or anything. I'm very normal. And if you're not, it's like if you're part of this industry, you have to be like that. And I think we're missing out. Like, sex is so normal. It's like eating. It's just part of like a healthy, happy existence. And by tabooing it, or by, you know, like adding those kind of like bad behaviors, you are stopping people from just seeing condoms as an essential, and like making sure that your sexual, it's, you know, it's like a weird example, but it's like sexual health is like brushing your teeth. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, like if you're gonna eat sweets all the time or drink soda, you need to brush your teeth. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we never question that. It's not like you should just like stop eating things that are bad for people. Like, no one's expecting you to do that. It's just like, you just got to look after your teeth. So how come it's just like, why are we just like don't have sex? It's bizarre to me.
It's a part of the hygiene, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it's so good for you. Like, I think I'm trying to think of a good statistic, but there's something about like orgasms and how good it is. I think it like helps with within a survey of people with depression. I think it showed like statistics of people like getting better when they were having like regular orgasms and stuff. It is so important. And I think obviously that comes to another conversation though about like the orgasm gap between men and women. But yeah, I think again, maybe sex would be better for women if there wasn't such a taboo around it, and if we weren't taught that sex is basically how men's pleasure is instead of women's pleasure. That's a whole other conversation. But again, it's just, I don't think people realize the length and how far this damage goes by just seeing sex is not an essential. It spreads to so many different areas of people's lives.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything that you just said there. And it's a part of our like daily hygiene essentially. And I'm not surprised that it can sort of help people with depression, because obviously if you're engaged in something and like you say, you know, you feel good and it's consensual and the situation's right, then of course, like, you know, it's just something that consenting people who are of the right age should be able to just enjoy, you know, safely without any taboo, you know, against it.
Well, yeah, I did a panel I think it was about a year ago now, and they asked me a really interesting question, which I'm going to ask you as well, and it is really awkward, just to warn you, but I'd really be interested to see what you thought as well. But they asked me what I thought of sex, and I was saying it's changed. So when I was younger, it was so empowering and I felt really confident, and I think at that point it was really making me fall in love with my body. I think when you're a teenage girl, you constantly feel like everything's wrong with your body and you're wrong, and then you start having relationships, and to see someone like completely appreciate you and love you for how you look is amazing. And I just at that time it was just so empowering for me, and just was like, it was really good. And then later on, like now when I've been engaged for years, it's for me now, it's about that connection with my partner and looking after our relationship health. like it's so important to have regular sex with your partner, like to keep you know, it's so good for endorphins and like connection. So it's changed, and it's, I think sex does change like as well when you start trying for a baby. That's a whole other experience as well. So it's just that I found that a really interesting question, and I think more people should talk about that and show how it changes. Because if you take it, as I just said, like empowering connection with my partner, that, where's the taboo?
Yeah.
The bad thing, there isn't
What is,
one.
yeah, like why is that so wrong?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I wanted to see what you thought to that question, because it's quite interesting one. Like I was quite shocked when they said it, but it is interesting.
Yeah. So like, do you want to know like what I think of sex in general?
If someone said like, what does sex mean to you? It's a weird question, but I'm interested.
Well, I definitely think it's a form of intimacy.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the only way to be intimate with a person, but obviously it adds a different level of intimacy. And the reason why I say that is because you're being so vulnerable with your body. You know, you're sharing your body with somebody, you're allowing them to come into your space, come into your home environment, or you're going into their home environment, and you're seeing each other without your clothes on, and you're learning about each other's bodies and stuff. Like, it's not even necessarily the act itself that is so intimate, but it's just like all the things that it takes to get you to that point.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you know, you've looked at someone and you've decided, hey, I want to do this with you. Do you know what I mean? Like all of those little things, like it kind of just like puts the cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting when you think, like, the more I ask that question, it's so, I just love that question now, because you really get into what it actually means to people. And I think you'd be so surprised, like the way it's predicted in like TV and well, just like popular culture, that's so different to our own explanations, when those explanations is what is real, like the real thing. It's just I think if society changed our idea and we went back to, like, well, I say back, but we went to thinking of sex like that, do you know what I mean? I could just see it being so much, and so much better for women's health, women's pleasure as well, moving away from it being, I don't know, TV shows it in such a different manner, when it's like, it's, you like when you watch TV and see sex scenes, those aren't vulnerable at all. Like, it's quite like a power thing, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. And I just
very staged, isn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, I just really like that question.
Yeah, no, it is a good question, and you kind of get to, you're being open, and you're also giving somebody else opportunity to be open as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I definitely think that we have to have a healthy attitude towards multiple things, because otherwise it's never going to get resolved, or there's never going to be, you know, we have to be more solution focused.
Yeah.
And it's going back to what I was saying earlier, just because you ignore something or act like it's not there, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So, but I do feel like I say, like people sort of our age group, a little bit older and a little bit younger, I feel like we're definitely embracing things more now. I mean, you have people with like social media platforms who are open about the sex work that they're engaging in.
Yeah.
And things like that. And I think, I know that some people, not everybody is in agreement with it, but I definitely think it helps open up that question of, like what you said, like what is sex? What does it mean to you? It's going to help change that landscape.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that subject is so interesting. And I think I don't understand why people aren't just curious. Like, ask questions. Like, it's so interesting to just know, like, what circumstances lead to like a position like that, and you know, like, and as well, if we're not engaging with that area, we're not asking, are those women protected? And I think that is a really important conversation as well. You can't just ignore it. You have to make sure they are protected. And I know Joel's biggest aim was that he wanted to, because there is a quite a, not problem, I don't know how you describe it, but there's a high amount of sex work done in Manchester where we live. And one of Joel's big aims is at one point he'd like to make sure that he like gives out mindless condoms to all the sex workers in Manchester, which is so lovely. Like, Joel's always been very progressive in that way, and I just think that is so lovely.
I think that's an amazing idea. And by doing that as well, you're also showing those women who are doing that work that they matter, and that their sexual health matters, and that they are not just like an invisible problem that should be like swept away by society. I feel like that would be really like validating and empowering on both sides if you guys were to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing about sex education that I find really interesting is I've seen loads of people talking about it, and the majority of the work that sex workers do is actually comforting people. which is really interesting. Sorry, I'm kind of going completely off what we were saying, but I find that really interesting, that the majority of sex work is comforting men, basically, and it's not about sex at all. I think there was someone who said like the amount of times they have like a man like on the lap like crying, and they're just trying to, and it shows again though, what are they looking for really? Are they looking for sex, or they're looking for like that open vulnerability, which we were saying like that is part of sex, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's true, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying about intimacy. If you're choosing to like spend time with someone and let them into your space, it is because some people will probably argue that it doesn't mean anything, and it's not necessarily the act itself, it's those vulnerable moments that you spend lying next to somebody, cuddling with somebody, talking to them whilst you're both sort of lying on your side, like all of those things are a form of intimacy. So that, you know, I'm not surprised that these men are seeking comfort in these women, because they're letting the women into such a vulnerable part of their lives. It's not like work related, or it's not like a business meeting. It's like these men are going to these women because they want that specific thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you think about that, how like people treat sex workers with such judgment, and then if you find out, if anything, they're actually it's a kind of another form of like, not therapy, but do you mean like just like letting someone be vulnerable and like caring for someone is, I don't know, I think again, when you actually open these conversations up, they're really interesting, and it says a lot about society that those women are judged more than anything, but if anything, they're giving out support and helping, especially in this times, you know, like with like living health, what is it called again, cost of living crisis and stuff like that, with the problems in the world. I just think if someone's offering another human being comfort, that's quite beautiful. And obviously there's a lot of situations where it's not like that and it's more of a power thing, but I don't know, I was quite shocked when I read that, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I also think as well that it's okay for people to not agree with everything.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like I feel like we have these conversations sometimes, and I feel like people are like trying to get people to be on one side or the other.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And I just feel like two things can be true at once, two things can be false at once. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like you've just got to kind of let people do them, as long as they're not endangering other people in the process, and everybody's consenting and there's good communication. Then it's like, who are we to judge it? You know.
Yeah, exactly. People are so ready to judge these days. I remember when I first went vegan, people always said to me like vegans are so preachy and are so like trying to get other people to be vegan. I've never ever tried to make anyone else vegan. I'm now not vegan, but I was for a long time. But the amount of times I'd have people who ate meat trying to get me to eat meat, I was just like, why can't you just like, why do you need to convert me? Like, just don't understand it.
It's so funny that you said that, actually, because I was actually going to use food as an example of like why it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
Because say if I like, I don't know, say if I like chocolate protein pancakes.
Yeah.
But you prefer to have bagels and cheese. Does that make like one food less than the other?
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean? Does it mean that now we can't sit down and have a conversation because we prefer a different breakfast?
Yeah, exactly. I think
do you know what I mean?
That's the truth one. I think that the only thing I worry about in this time is people are so scared of having open kind of dialogue of being judged that conversations are kind of closed down quite fast. And I think I saw something, I can't remember when it was, but the conversation in it was
the signal went then. Sorry, the signal went then. Could you just repeat that? It just completely locked me out of the chat and then brought me back in again.
I can't remember what I was saying. What was I saying? Oh, I've lost it. I can't remember.
So we're saying that like we're saying that like two things can be true at once, and then he was like, yeah, and then.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's what kind of worries me as well. I think we're so ready to like shut other people down, and I think the subject that I'm really interested in this area in Israel is racism, because if you're shutting people down straight away, I think what we're going to understand is, sorry, I'm really going into something deep now, but that like racism isn't straightforward. Some of it is so hidden and in our infrastructure that I think when a lot of Black people comment about it, or like from other communities as well, they comment about it, white people can't see it. And because they can't, well, obviously, why would they experience it? They can't, you know, like they can't see it because that obviously wouldn't happen to them. but then they're so afraid that they're going to get like called out or the conversation is going to end. They're not willing to open these conversations up. Like we were saying with the sex worker thing, do you just don't judge? Just mean like, I think that's why so many white people just don't want to hear it, because they don't understand it. And I think we're kind of locked in a kind of way where people think racism is one certain thing, and it's that extreme of someone being like overtly racist. But that's not the problem. To be honest, those aren't really the problem, people. It's infrastructure that is the problem. But if you're not willing to show that racism is just, do you know what I mean? It's way more, and it's way more indisputable than we can say. Like, how, yeah, you just, does that make sense?
No, it does. It does make sense. It does make sense, because if I have been judged in recent years, say because of a career that I've chosen, or because I'm a mother, like I remember being told when I had a baby, I remember being told by a couple of people who I knew, and they had already had small children.
Yeah.
And they were very sure, basically, that I would essentially stop dressing up because I'm a parent. And I think it's still basically projecting their ideas onto me, because they had, you know, maybe not necessarily let themselves go, because the people that were saying it don't dress much different to how they did before, if that makes sense. Like, they were never the type of people to kind of dress up anyway. And I guess now they'll probably just blaming it on the fact that they had children. But I do remember thinking, what is it that I've done to make that person think that would actually happen to me?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the comments happened sort of during COVID lockdown, and I remember thinking to myself, well, we're in a pandemic, so nobody's dressing up. I don't have anywhere to go because the world has literally shut down.
Exactly. If you're gonna relax at any time.
Yeah, and it's quite funny actually, because I actually started my fitness journey like after my daughter was born. I think I started around 2020, maybe the same time as a lot of people. And it's obviously I've only just recently started to see changes as well, so it's a long process. But I know for a fact that I look and feel better now than I did before having my child. So when I look back at these comments, I have to. It was only two people that said it, but I had to kind of reflect and think to myself, and this is what anyone can do. Anyone can apply this exercise. Is what this person's saying true?
Yeah.
And you also have to look at who is saying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this someone that you want to take advice from? Is this somebody that you want to be like?
Yeah.
Is this even somebody that you want to have in your life?
Yeah.
And when you talked about the racism thing, when I reflected back on these things, because I was having a conversation with my friend the other day about it, when I actually did think of racism, because what racism is not I mean, there's lots of layers to racism, so I can't get into every single aspect of it. But one of the aspects is that people push their preconceived ideas onto a marginalized group of people. And a lot of black people back in the day would say that they are qualified, they are dressed the part, they know what they're talking about, they're confident, they're polite and whatever, but they will go to this job and they'll be denied the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because that person has already decided, I know what you are.
Yeah.
Because I've decided who you are based on the color of your skin.
Yeah.
So I don't care what else you've got going on. And there's actually a really fantastic episode, if anybody wants to find it on YouTube. Have you ever watched That's So Raven on the Disney Channel?
No, I didn't have Disney Channel, I'm afraid.
Oh, didn't you? You know what? I did, but it was only sort of like, I remember for years we didn't have it, and then it was only as I got to sort of like maybe 8 that we just got all the channels. And there's a show called That's So Raven, an amazing show. I actually think she influenced my personality because she was a teenager, so a black teenager in America. So the Americans would refer to her as African American, and she was really stylish, really stylish, and she came from a really nice family. She had, her parents were married, she had a younger brother, and they lived in this house in San Francisco. And the episodes were basically focused on her and her best friends going to school, and then her family life as well. And she was just, oh, honestly, her looks were iconic. Like, if after this interview, go and Google Raven Simone from That's So Raven, and you'll see like all of her different outfits and her hair and makeup. And I probably unintentionally dress like her now. But yeah, so she was really stylish and she was into fashion. And there was an episode which tackled racism.
Yeah.
And her best friend Chelsea was white. So they both, oh, sorry, and one thing I forgot to mention as well is that Raven is psychic. So, so she can see into the future, but she only can see like a small snippet. So the episode will always like zoom in on her eye, and then she will see a vision.
Yeah.
So her and her friend basically apply for this retail job, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering the plot because obviously it's been a long time, but so I might have got some details wrong. But her and her best friend go to it's just basic plot, but her and her best friend go to apply for this job, and and basically Chelsea is terrible. So, you know, she's not really folding it's a retail job, so she's not folding the clothes correctly. All the little tasks that they're doing, Chelsea is just getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Raven does everything perfectly. She comes in, she's fashionable. Obviously, it's a fashion retail shop, so you want the person to be fashionable. She's well-spoken, polite, walking around with a smile on her face, folded the clothes perfectly, did all the little tasks perfectly, and her friend Chelsea just didn't do a great job. So obviously in Raven's mind, she's like, okay, well, if it's down to us two, then I'm going to be the more suitable candidate because I've just, done all these jobs. And then what happens is the woman hires Chelsea and not Raven. And then Raven basically, I think she suspects or she gets a vision that this person is racist. So I think they like do an experiment and they like put a mic on Chelsea to try and catch her saying. And I think Chelsea was asking her like, why didn't you hire my best friend? And the woman turned around to her and was like, we don't hire black people. Yeah. But I feel like this was really powerful because this is kids' TV. It's a kids' TV show.
I think it's so important to educate kids at that age and to actually, it's so hard. Like I think obviously I can't say what it's like to experience racism, but with like sexism, it's hard to identify it when you're younger, and I think it takes being an adult to be able to identify it. So to have that at such a young age is so important.
And I think what they did so perfectly as well, which I think was so perfect, is that they were very clear in the episode that there was nothing wrong with Raven.
Yeah.
Because they could have made her like a problem child, or you know what I mean? They could have given her some like really reckless storyline and then blamed it on racism, but they didn't do that. They deliberately showed you that she was more than capable, because these are the experiences that minorities genuinely face. People of color genuinely face not feeling like they're good enough, even though on paper they have surpassed what they were supposed to do. They're actually more than capable, sometimes even overqualified. But they're being told like, you are not good enough for this, for what it is that we're trying to do. And I think that's what I loved about the episode, is that it showed Raven flying it with passing colours. And it came down to somebody having a preconceived idea about her and telling her that they don't hire black people. And so when you tried to sort of use racism as an example, I knew what you were talking about, because that type of racism could be applied to lots of different scenarios, because it's basically somebody telling you something that is not true.
No, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
I feel for so many entrepreneurs who are like different ethnicities as well, because like I say, I have never had an investment meeting with anyone who wasn't a white man, an old white man. And like, I think it's a lot of cases, I don't know if you could argue, but I think a lot of behavioural studies could tell you, I think people choose to give opportunity to people who remind them of themselves. And I think you can see that. And I think that again answers the question of like, why aren't I going into a meeting and seeing different, like more diversity? I think that's why. And we really, I don't know, I'm not sure how we do it. Like, it's so difficult to take those things apart. But you know, like there's better people than me doing it. But it is quite. I think as well. I don't think a lot of white people realise. That's obviously, I can't talk about racism thing, but that is something I can talk about. I can just realise a lot of people just do not realise it, and I think that's something that I'd really like to educate people on, from my perspective. Just educate white people on how there's just things that we can't even like imagine. Like my friend, one time she was on the bus and this woman moved her purse away from her. When I'm traveling, I would not in a million years need to think about that. It's just an experience. Like,
I think I remember you telling me that story, and it was just to clarify, it was a black woman, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was just so. I bring it up a lot because it's just, you know, when you just hear something, it's just like that perfectly summed her experience up for me. And I think as well, it's a good way to explain it to white people, because racism isn't what you. God, we've really got off topic now, but it's just really important to talk about. But we cannot imagine. It is so I keep trying to say that word.
Ingrained.
Yeah, and it's so part of our infrastructure. It's not individual people, it's part of the infrastructure that we have no idea. And it really worries me with entrepreneurs, like how more difficult it'd be. Like, if we're talking about 1% for female founders, imagine like non-white female founders. I can't even judge how much more difficult it will be. I'm hopeful that there are investment groups who are trying to reach those kind of diverse female founders. But it worries me, and I want to be hopeful, but I think it's a long way. But if you are like from a different ethnicity and you want to become like an entrepreneur, obviously there is opportunity, and I think you've got to go for it, and you will find, I think there always will be investment. I had a recent investment meeting, and one of the leaders of it was saying, there is investment for you. Like, it may be easier, it may be more difficult, but there is investment for you. So I don't want to like discourage anyone, because it's so important that, you know, like different people are trying to create businesses. So like I say, like just from my businesses trying to help women's healthcare, that's so important. Like, and there's so many ideas out there that could make, like, so I'm specifically talking about women's health, but there's so many different things that we can do to make life easier for ourselves. And if you want to start a business, please like do it. And, you know, like if it's in a few years, please contact me and try and like see if I can help you with investment. That's one thing I think me and my partner are really interested in doing, is one day just being able to like give me, even if it's just like lists of investors we've talked to, and I think that's what other kind of investors and like not investors, entrepreneurs in privileged positions should be doing. Anything that we're like mentoring, anything we can be doing to help other people get up their ladder, because I think that's the only way we can really make change. So yeah.
Oh wow, that was very inspiring, and I'll be sending you an email, my business plan.
Investment's ready for you, don't worry.
I do feel like as well, for me, I just feel like it's important to have as many different diverse people as possible. And that, to me, you know, also includes white people as well. For me, it's almost just like having an equal opportunity. Like, I'll give you an example. I don't know if when I spoke to you before, I don't know if I mentioned, but like the book that I'm working on, it's a fictional novel.
Oh, amazing.
So thanks. I don't think I've actually announced that on the podcast yet, so this is like an exclusive.
Exciting, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm working on that, and you know, hopefully I can't have like a date when it's going to be out, but it's still in work in progress. And I mention this because the characters in my book are all diverse. There's lots of different characters. They are Black characters, mixed race characters, white, Asian. And for me, before I even get it onto the bookshelves, I want people from all those backgrounds to actually, you know how you have those people that like, just you give them the books just to actually just read, you know, just so that you can get some feedback before you even, you know, put it out into the universe. And the reason I'd want that is because I'd be like, first of all, I want to make sure that it's a true reflection of that group of people. So I don't want to ever write somebody and it sounds like a sort of stereotype.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I want it to be sort of true to real life.
Yeah.
And I also want to make sure as well that it's not, I know that it's difficult to never offend anybody, but I also want to make sure that it's not offensive as
Yeah.
well. Because I would be horrified if, you know, there was a non-black author who had a black character and they just did them no justice.
Yeah.
And that's another rule that I have as well, that there are no set villains or angels in my story either, because I feel like there's a bit of good and bad in everybody.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sorry, this is such a niche little tiny way, but I'm a bit of a Doctor Who nerd. So they've recently announced that the old character of Davros, who was in like a wheelchair, they basically decided now he's not going to be in a wheelchair because it seems really subtle, but if you are disabled, this obviously would be really apparent to you. That character's a villain, and it comes from a long history of like villainizing people who with disabilities. And I obviously would not have picked that out in a million years. And once it's like you see it, it's so obvious and it's so powerful. So no, that's so amazing what you're doing. I think like little things like that are just so powerful.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like as a black person, we're not the only group of people who are marginalized. There are different ethnic groups. There's, you know, the Asian people, and there's also, like you mentioned, disabled people, people that are a part of the LGBTQ community as well. So there's so many different groups, you know, who are not really represented, and I kind of feel like we all have a responsibility to make sure that they're all seen and heard. So I think that's one of the main reasons as well why I try to write diverse characters. But I also want them to be read by the people who are from those backgrounds, so they can kind of validate it and say, oh yeah, you know, that's true.
So that's honestly, I think when you try to like pinpoint what makes change, it's always small little things. And I think, yeah, it's books like that will be. Did you say it's children's books as well?
So it's quite funny actually, because without giving away too much of the plot, because you know this episode is not really supposed to be about that, but it's funny because originally in my mind it was just primarily for adults, and that's just because the topics are adult based.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it was suitable for children. It's definitely not a children's book.
Yeah.
But there's you know, like young adult, which is like I think it's like teens, isn't it, from like 12 to 18 or something. And then the next step up from that is new adult, which is like 18 to like mid 20s or something.
Yeah.
Or I can't remember now, it might be 18 to 30. I think it's quite a big gap. But anyway, I feel like young adults, so sort of like 12 to teenage, could get away with reading it because there is a storyline that follows a teenager.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I kind of feel like if a younger person was to come across it, they might want to read it, because I feel like people enjoy reading stories that are about people who are a similar age to them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, that's so
powerful. Thanks. I'll send you a copy when it's done. But yeah, so before you go, I want to ask you what you do to sort of set up your day. Like, how do you prepare? So obviously you're an entrepreneur, and I know that you're working alongside your partner, but it still must be a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, a lot of dedication. And on this podcast, I do like to speak about self-care and how people pour back into themselves.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's important. It's a balance. It's a juggling act. So, you know, what could you just talk us through your typical daily routine from the morning to the moment you go to bed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously don't listen to this and think that you have to get up early, but I do. I usually get up about 5, but that's just me. Like my partner, like he obviously is probably more successful than me, and he wakes up like at 8. So do you know what I mean? It's whatever suits you. I like to get up early because I like having this like peaceful like 2 hours before anyone else is up, and it's not for work. Like I really like that it's dark, so it's like tells my brain like this isn't time that's not for work. And this is so nerdy, but I like there's this thing called like Harry Potter ambience where it just has like little clips of like Hogwarts, and it has like relaxing music. I've just found like in the morning I need something slower, just like peaceful, because I think my brain's just like kind of nice and relaxed. I've not got like running thoughts, and what I noticed before is like I'd put TV on and it would be like, do you know, so much information, and that like sweet 2 hours I just wanted like not much information. So yeah, I do that, and I have been doing yoga every day and it's been a year and a month now, which has been amazing. And again, like I started like at the same time with you because of the pandemic, so I'm working out, and it's only now that I've actually got like arm muscles from doing it. So like it does take forever.
It does.
I don't know if you agree, but you have to have more of a motivation than to look good. It has to be like, mine was like mental health. And I don't, you won't get the results if your motivation is to look good, basically.
Oh no, 100%. I think I actually dabbled in fitness around 2019 to begin with. But I remember vividly around 2020, like just kind of actually sort of get into classes and things like that. And I remember just feeling so like physically out of shape. And and it wasn't until 2022. So we're talking like last year that I only started to see the changes.
Yeah, it's absolutely ages, but the like mental health benefits are like instantaneous. I can't talk instantaneous. So I'd say like if you have that as your motivation, that's definitely gonna make sure it's like a long-term kind of habit. So yes, I've been doing yoga for a long time. I do try and run, but because I don't like to run not outside. Like to me, I don't like listening to music when I'm running either. I like to run and just kind of like, because I feel like you're ticking off a lot of boxes. Like you're outside, you've got vitamin D, you got fresh air. You kind of like, I like to like listen to like nature around me. So like, I can tick off like 4, like wellness boxes on my run. So that's always good. And then my biggest thing, and I don't know if I'm going to get like a bad response from this, but it's the truth. And I think there might be people like me who might want to hear it. In that I would say, like at the moment I can't because I'm trying to get an investment deck and it's taking me forever. But I stop work about 3, sometimes like 1, which to hear an entrepreneur say that is quite shocking. But to be honest, like recently I've had to work till like 5, and I'm realizing I'm in bed and I've got so much going on in my head and I'm struggling to sleep. Whilst when I'm like stopping at like a 3, which is I say usually it's about 3, I've got that time to run through it all. And by the time I'm going to bed, I am relaxed. And I've always hated this thing about like you're an entrepreneur, you've got to work hard, like you must work hard. And I think it just comes from, to be honest, 9 to 5s. Like, sorry, I'm going on a long-winded thing here, but like 9 to 5 started with people in factories. And obviously, like if you're like tinning dog food, the more time you have, the more food you're going to tin. Whilst that cannot be comparable to today's jobs. So like with an entrepreneur, like I could work till like all hours. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of like make it this kind of like really like not ambitious, kind of like braggy thing to have, like, oh, I work all hours, I never get any sleep. When I just think, how are you achieving anything? Like, how are you being creative? Like, how are you keeping it together? Because that, I don't know if you're different to me, but that does not reflect my life. I find recently I was working loads and I just got burnt out, and then it took me ages. Like, I literally had to say to myself, over Christmas I'm gonna have to take a week off to get over this. So it's obviously been a mistake, and I do just really want to encourage people that's not what it should look like. You can be an entrepreneur and just like work the hours that are right for you. It's really important. And I think I found working 9 to, like I'm so much happier now as an entrepreneur because I found working 9 to 5 so just exhausting. It just was not right for my body at all. And I don't know what people might think, like, oh, she's lazy or something like that. And I think that's kind of my own like fear coming through, and my own kind of beliefs that I've absorbed from society. But yeah, I do not think you need to do that. I think you can be successful. Like I've got where I am today by doing that, and it's worked for me, and it's made sure that I can sleep well. It means that my creativity is still strong. Like I don't know, it's one of my biggest and proudest things actually. It's hard to be proud of it because there is so much, our society is so much about like always progressing, like fast. I would not suggest that. If anything, I think like at the moment it's winter and my own body's trying to reflect that. Like this morning I was thinking, right, I need to do my yoga, I need to go on my run, I need to get all these chores done like before the podcast. But then I could just tell that it was just a reaction inside of me, and I decided to just like watch The Grinch this morning and just like relax. That's not like what's the word? It's not like I haven't really achieved anything, like I haven't done a lot of work. But that's what I wanted to do, and I kind of like at the same time, like no one else is really doing much in December. So why would I fight it? Why would I send out loads of emails that aren't going to get responses right now? Like sometimes I think you've got to trust to relax, and I think as a woman as well, like we've got to remember our menstrual cycles are so much different to like men's cycles. They have a 24-hour, we obviously have a monthly, and our energy levels change. And I think again that's another reason why women struggle. So I just think it's really important. So I don't think anyone listening who's ever been like, oh, I'm lazy because I don't work like a full day. Do not feel lazy. If anything, like you're probably more creative than those people who like rave about, you know, like working all the hours. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. I feel like that's one of the hardest things about being an adult, that even when we're not doing anything, we feel a little bit guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we feel like, oh my God, I should be hustling right now. I should be, you know, working on business, or, you know, like there's always something for adults to do. Like, oh, I've got a free hour. Let me use this time to tidy up. Like there's a lot of pressure of just existing as an adult, especially in this climate. I feel like that's very understandable.
Yeah, I feel like as a woman as well, your like period is such a gift, because every time I have my period, I'm just like, it's my excuse. And I hate that there has to be an excuse. Like there really shouldn't be. Like we're not, as human beings, we weren't supposed to be like this. So I'm really going off topic now, but yeah, we weren't supposed to be like this. So I feel like our periods gives us such an excuse. And there's not really an excuse, because this is what our body actually wants to do, and is to rest. And yeah, I'm just grateful for that time. And ever since I started resting in that time, like especially from the luteal phase to my period coming, I definitely rest in that time. And I've just noticed such a change. Like there's like sorry, I'll give you a little snippet, but I could go on about this for ages. But I think it's the women's football team who won. Yeah, I think England's football team this time. They each player, like the managers, know their menstrual cycle, and they train dependent on that. And obviously you can see the results have done amazing. So it just shows it's important, like to make sure you're just changing, you're like putting your energy levels dependent on your time of the month. Like if you're ovulating, that is the time to have meetings, you know, like do all the work, creativity time. And your period, that's when you relax, and your ovulation won't be as successful if you don't rest in that time. So I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah. So your mantra is basically work smarter and not harder.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm going to use that instead because it sounds better than what I said.
No, yours was good. So you start work at 3 o'clock. So what time do you finish?
Oh no, sorry, I end work. So
you end work at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, so I'd start about 8, and then I work till, to be honest, by 1 sometimes. I think it sounds really bad of it. I think yes, sometimes I stop at 1. At the moment, it's not possible because I'm doing my investment deck, so that is like work. But yeah, it's a lot of times I'd say I'd work like 8 till 1, and that, I don't know, sometimes I get quite embarrassed saying it, but it's got me here, and like my mental health's good, so it shows that it's worth it. And I think, yeah, for me it's been, and to be totally honest, I spend most of that time like 1 forwards, like on the sofa. And again, really, it's not how you imagine an entrepreneur, like laying on a sofa at 3 in the afternoon, but you need, like, there's so much stress that comes from running a business. You need to have those habits. And I don't like people, like, I hate this like lazy word. Like my sister's always thought she was really lazy, and it really annoys me because it's just like, we're not supposed to be like that. It's no wonder some people are on antidepressants and like get burnt out. It's not normal. Like you need to listen to your own body. And like I think other people probably can work more than me, and I can work more, but I try not to because I just notice it, like have problems with my sleep. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting the things that you're saying, because I always say, oh, you know, it's going to be great for the listeners, but I actually ask questions for myself also, because I feel like I'm also on a learning journey. And would you say then, so from your perspective, would you say that it is better to get all of your work done earlier on in the day so that you can kind of chill and unwind for the rest of the day?
I'd say it depends on the person, because like my partner Joel, he would definitely rather work like later on in the day. So we were like hypothesizing our future. Like Joel still works as a chartered functional planner, but I like to imagine like when he joins the business, like that's our big dream. So we like just going through the day together, and we were talking about like if we had an office, I'd probably go to the office about 7, and he was saying he'd probably like join me later at like about 10. And so for him, he'd rather work in the afternoon, but I would rather work in the morning. And I don't know, that is more of like a I don't know what you call it. It's not a late. What's the one? It's like not a late owl. What's the morning one?
Night owl. Morning. Night owl. And is it morning bird?
Morning
bird.
I think so. It's something in it.
Morning bird and night owl.
Yeah, I'm more of a morning bird, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's morning bird.
Yeah. So, but only recently, which is really strange. Like, I never would have said that before, but it's only recent. I'd say it's only in the last like 5 years that I, love getting up early. It's definitely not for everybody, but for me, I think.
Yeah, but do you think that's, sorry, I was just going to say, do you not think that's quite common for people in their 20s though? Because when you think about it, when we were like in our teens and very early 20s, it was all about staying up late and then waking up late. Because, there's not really many teenagers that wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Because, they'd wake up for school, but on a Saturday, they wouldn't wake up at 5 a.m. because most kids are staying up late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I feel like it's only when you hit a certain point in your life, so like mid to late 20s, that you actually start to embrace mornings more, because you see the reward of getting up early, getting things done early, and then you then have the rest of the day to kind of, watch your series on TV, or do you know what I mean, or indulge in a movie. Because for me, when nighttime hits, I definitely do like to unwind.
Yeah.
But then I would feel super guilty if I didn't utilize the early hours in the day.
Yeah.
But I would much rather sit and get work done in the morning when the whole world is up than to kind of cram it all in at 8 o'clock at night when you're starting to feel tired.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I think I've always been like that. That like I also have like a thing about 9 to 5s as well, is that some people generally work faster. And if you think actually about 9 to 5, how much time is actually spent pretending to work because you reach your natural I need a break, that you've got to pretend to keep working. And I remember that I always felt really not judged, because I don't sure people knew, but I felt so guilty that I was like, I could feel naturally, like by like I say, like at 1 I used to do 9 to 5, my brain was like shutting off, like I was so ready to be done, but I managed to get all my work done that day. And Joel's the same, like in his job he'd get the work done so fast, and he'd have colleagues who take the whole day to do that work, and you do kind of feel guilty because you're just like, do you mean like, am I not as good, like should I be working all the time? But I think some people take longer to do work, some people take shorter times, and I think for us, like I bet when Joel joins the business he'll probably have like big breaks of the day. I definitely I can easily get, like you were saying, like I can get all my work done in the morning, and I'm actually like, my brain works so much better. Like I know like if I have to do lots of like writing, I'm gonna have to do it in the morning, because in the afternoon like there's just, my brain just won't be there. So yeah, it's just really interesting, and I think when you look into it, I bet a lot of people are like that, and I'm just so against 9 to 5. So that's one of my big initiatives about when we hire people for my business, is I would never set hours. Like not even, I wouldn't even say you have to do like 8 hours a day. Like I would not set hours. Like you have your work for the week, get it done in whatever way you want to get it done. I don't like this 9 to 5 idea. I think it's so reasons why so many people have health problems and so many people don't work out. I think, where do you fit your working out time in there? It's just not really proper. I think that's why some people liked not like the pandemic, but liked being in lockdown, because it gave us that time to actually like really discover working out. Like I found, because after lockdown I never went straight back to like full time, like in the office. Obviously like I was working all those hours, but like I was at home a lot of the time, and I was able to keep up my exercising, and it was so important to me, and I just couldn't have done that. As well, traveling to work, I had stopped at a time. Like I don't know, I'm just really against 9 to 5s. I think they really impact mental health, and yeah, that's why I think for my business that's a huge thing for me. Like I would just never put hours on someone. Like do it in whatever works for you, because some people do like working really late. My sister works at like 12 at night. I could never be like that, and it's horrifying to me, but just that's how some people work.
Yeah, I used to think that I was a night owl, but something has just changed.
Yeah.
It could also be because of obviously having a small child as well. It's just no longer realistic to even stay up until like 1 a.m. working, because then when it's time to get up to do the score run, I'm just going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
So for me, I would rather, that's one of the reasons why I've kind of leaned into that idea of work smarter and not harder, because it doesn't mean that the goals stop or they become non-existent. The goals are still there.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of bend your schedule so that you can get everything that you need out of it without completely breaking your back in the process.
Yeah, exactly. And it is obviously it's difficult, like you said, with having children as well. I can't imagine, like, with people who don't have support, I can't even imagine how they do it, and they're absolutely amazing. But yeah, I think we should be encouraging more, like, if you can work smarter is so important. I love that. I'm going to use it all the time now. If you have a busy schedule, you will be able to do it. And just, I don't think we should be, like, I think something I realized for myself is, like, for my own mental health, my business may go slower and grow slower than I may potentially want. But if my mental health stays intact during that time, that's so important. So if you have loads of kids and you want to start a business, it may not go slow, but it may, you've got to allow yourself, it may go slow. And to be honest, I sometimes think there's actually a benefit, because you're not rushing into making decisions, and you're going to be more sustainable. So I found that every time something's like slowed down with our business, we've made better decisions. We had to recap something, and it's actually, so it took 3 years to launch our business, which is horrifying and was really hard, but so many different versions have gone through in that time. And like, yeah, we had to fight obviously for different ingredients and stuff, but the final product is so worth it. So yeah, looking on my life, you may think, oh, it took forever, but I'm grateful for that time. So yeah, if anyone's listening who's like a really busy schedule, or they've still done a 9 to 5 that they want to start a business, you can find the way. It may go slower, but that actually might be in your favor.
Yeah. I definitely think that with topics like this, I feel like consistency is key.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because it's about actually just taking some time out of each day and dedicating it to your craft, and spending that time to learn your craft as well.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like you say, people get so caught up with the process, rushing the process, that the product isn't even as good as it could be.
Yeah.
Because they just wanted to get something out there and tie a bow on it and go, here you go, it's finished.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
I was just going to say, you brought to mind, I won't say who it is, but one of my competitors. So we basically were really proud of the fact we're bringing out the buttercup condom. So it kind of looks like a coffee pod, and we're really proud of it. And to all our investment meetings, we're like the first ones in the UK to bring it out. But because obviously we took so much time to make it perfect, to make the box perfect and all the ingredients, another competitor actually brought out buttercup condoms before we did, which obviously was a massive blow. It actually turned out all right. And like, it hasn't put our customers off, and we've actually still, God, this sounds really braggy, I don't mean it to, but like, we're more popular than them on the site, so it's fine. But you can tell their product's been rushed, and also I'm trying not to give details, but yeah, you definitely tell it was rushed, and you can definitely tell it's an add-on product rather than, like, with us, obviously this was my dream. This is, like, I find this so important. Well, that was very much an add-on. And you can just see how it was rushed. And like I say, within 3 months, we overtook that product. Like, it was terrifying to think they've taken our big thing. But in the end, it didn't turn out that was our big thing. In the end, it was the ingredients, which was what took so long. So it just shows, yeah, like, timescales. Do you know what I mean? You will win in the end. It's like the rabbit in the hair, the hare and the tortoise.
Yes, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
I love that analogy. Like, that is the perfect way to describe it, because the with the hair, he was so convinced that it was like, I'm gonna win this, I've got this. And I definitely think, like what you just said, slow and steady wins the race. I'd like to point out as well that your products are like really natural based as well, aren't they?
Yeah, that was really important for us. I think we just noticed that, which is I just personally do not think there's enough kind of trials and kind of like I don't know what the word is, but like, basically separate body looking at condoms, because not only do they not actually include their ingredients on the box, which again is an internally used product, and we don't know the ingredients. It's quite, like, so many people have like reactions to different chemicals and you don't even know what you use. That is staggering to me. And as well, like, we looked at all these different products, and so many of them have got ingredients that cause, like, they do cause irritation in a lot of women, and in many cases they cause like thrush infections, UTI infections, which, if anyone's had a UTI infection, like, oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. And yeah, so one of the worst experiences I've ever had. So to just think that, again, I remember we spoke to someone, I won't say which brand it was, but someone who used to work for this particular condom brand, and she said they know that women don't like big roll boxes, they know that women don't like these ingredients, but there is no pressure for them to change, there's nothing to change their, like, no pressure to change their business model, change their products, nothing. They know, but they're not going to change. So I think that's what's really important for us. Like, even if like they eventually do change, at least we made that progress, at least we can bring out better products for women. Because yeah, there's things, they have like parabens in them, they have fragrances, the fragrances are really bad. Like, I think it's really coming out that, and the more and more people know, like, you shouldn't like put any kind of fragrances down there. It's not necessary. Like, vaginas are self-cleaning, you know, like natural, it's supposed to have a smell, it's very natural, it's healthy, you don't touch it, don't put anything there. So yeah, so that was a big thing with ours, that we wanted to make sure that we were only using like 2 ingredients. So it's 100% natural latex and silicone oil. And again, what was really frustrating is we did a survey about our products, and someone was like, can you use water-based? Now, water-based does sound better than silicone oil. Like, silicone oil sounds quite clinical. Water-based, you know, it's water, it seems to be natural. But water-based causes thrush in a lot of women, especially women with recurrent like thrush infections. So it's frustrating because they sound like, water-based does sound better, I know that. But again, we went for silicone oil, which is more expensive, because that shows like far less circumstances of women experiencing any kind of infection or irritation. But again, I really should publicize it more, but because I just don't think people are aware of that. But there's these other companies add all sorts of things, and I think a lot of them are like trying to enhance male pleasure as well, which really frustrates me, because again, let's just get back to it, it's an essential product, and it's a product that's internally used by women. Yeah, so yeah, that to me is really important, that these were like very natural ingredients, and ingredients that weren't going to cause any kind of infection. Because surely that's number one. If you're making a condom product, I don't get how these other companies are like, that's not number one. Like, number one is like ribbed, some mental pleasure. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, actually, because I've never looked at it like that. Like, because condoms are, when you think of condoms, you think of contraception, which is aimed at men.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's obviously it's going on their body part, but like what you've just pointed out, even though it's on their body part, it is going to be going inside a woman.
Yeah.
Well, in heterosexual relationships anyway. Yeah. So actually, they're kind of dropping the ball a little bit by not including more women when they're thinking about the marketing aspect of it and the actual ingredients side of things. So I think that's really important. I feel like it's a really interesting twist that you took something that people associate with men and aimed it primarily at women.
Again, I think what shocked me, and I love saying this statement there because I think it's so true, contraception is so gendered. It is so gendered, and more gendered than we can imagine. When you think about the way, like, if you think about the condoms that you see at your like local shop, they're bright colors, they're almost like bourgeoisie, you know, like they're like deep purple and black and red. Like, what natural product is in those colors? And you know, like essential products. You don't see tampons in like bright black or bright red. Like, no, why would your condoms be? Like, they're just so gendered, and like all the marketing again is just so aimed at men, whilst like it's hormonal contraception. Like, all the packages like purple, got stars on it. That is obviously men can't use it, but it is completely like marketed towards women, and that's why most women use it. But what's frustrating is so many women have reactions to hormonal contraception, so prefer to use a non-hormonal product like condoms, but then they don't feel like that product is for them, and they don't. I think there's that thing again, that people don't think they're safe. Like, they are 98% effective. It's very unlikely that you'll get pregnant from it. It is a safe option, and if you are struggling with hormonal contraception, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, I myself, like, I went to the doctors and I was told that my side effects were worth me not getting pregnant, and I just felt like my partner was having no side effects, even though this was like a shared experience between us. It just felt so disempowering and awful. And anyway, so I just did not listen, and now I don't have any side effects. But obviously it does work for some women, but I just think that for those people who are struggling, you know, there are, even if you don't use condoms, there are other options. And I think we should be raising that awareness, especially like, I remember when I got put on the pill when I was 14, I don't remember being told, like, they didn't line out all the products. It was like, oh, you're of age, let's put you on hormonal contraception. And you know, like now I think we are starting to see the fallback of that, and we are having more and more conversations in media about women who've had these awful reactions, and it's getting quite like I keep seeing terrible ones. And like I recently told, there's this poet called Holly, I can't remember her last name, which is really bad, but she's amazing. But she was hospitalized from being on hormonal contraception. It is a conversation, and it is something we should be ready. Like, I feel like it's just because it's not everybody who's impacted, we shouldn't ignore the women who are impacted by it. It is a serious conversation. Like, we should not be making women's lives harder. Like, not already we live in a patriarchy. Let's not make other women have like awful side effects as well, because otherwise we don't get any change if these women are too ill to be able to do anything. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's really interesting. And I remember when I was younger, I always heard that the pill made you put weight on, or and you know, being told that, oh, actually it just increases your appetites, that's the reason why you can gain weight from them. And I've also heard that they can help with your period, and there's just so much information, I think, being thrown at us, and a lot of people kind of just run with the one or two things that they were told. But I definitely think that it's very important that we do educate ourselves about what it is, so we can make the right choices for us. And I feel like as well that everybody's so different that people probably find that what may work for them might not work for somebody else. So it's important to keep that in mind as well, because it's already overwhelming as it is. So you don't want to overwhelm yourself by trying to kind of keep up with what everybody else is doing, and just focus on listen to your own body and focus on what that needs. Is there anything, so I know that you've obviously tried hormonal UTIs before. Is it UTIs? Am I saying it right? IUDs. Oh, I'm so sorry. UTIs. I was like, no, that's not the right one. Yeah, IUDs, sorry. What was your experience like with that? Because you was talking about that the hormones in them, actually you had a bad reaction to it.
Oh yeah, it was awful. So firstly, can I put a disclaimer for anyone thinking about getting one? Please, I'd stop listening now, because my experience, like, I've had friends who have them put in, have had no bad experiences. So yes, again, if you're having one put in, and yeah, just stop listening now and maybe like fast forward a bit. But yes, but for anyone who is still listening, so I got one put in, and it was absolute agony. It was so horrifyingly painful getting that put in. I was crying looking at the ceiling. It felt so invasive. So it was, and I didn't know what was happening. It was awful. They actually had someone in there just to hold my hand, which gives you an idea of how painful it is. Like, now there's so much call for women to have pain relief when they're having these procedures done, which it is staggering that I was not offered pain relief for that. It was horrifying. It was honestly like, it felt like medieval times. It was quite barbaric. It was just, really, really painful. And what's really frustrated me is there was recently a documentary with Davina McCall talking about like hormonal contraception, and she was apparently doing this really amazing thing where she was getting an IUD put in like on live TV. That's amazing, like so good. So basically she got like the best gynecologist in like the country to have hers put in. She talked through each stage of it, helped like with her like breathing through it, everything like that. I think she might be offered pain relief. I'm not 100%, but I think she might have been. And it was just such a different experience. And what really wound me up is that's not the experience most normal women will be getting. Like, that is the most privileged experience I've ever seen. Like, that is not normal. And it infuriates me that someone might have seen that and be like, oh, it's fine, and when I got it done, and it would have, like, I'm definitely a little bit traumatized from mine. It was really horrible. And like, it was just awful. So to give you an example, when I got smear tests, the doctor was like, have you had an IUD put in? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, this is nothing compared to that. Like, it's very well known that it's awful having to put it in. So that was awful. And then I had awful side effects from it. I had extreme mood swings. Like, one story I tell, it sounds awful, and please, anyone who has like sensitive issues with domestic abuse, like, please recognize that Joel is fine, and like, it's all fine. But I actually threw a deodorant can at his head. I didn't mean to, but I was so angry, and I got to this level of anger that I've never got to before, and I threw a deodorant can at his head, and it bruised. And that was our biggest thing. That's when I went to doctors to try and get it removed, because I was like, I've never felt this level of anger. It was like something like now I could never get that angry. Nothing could happen that would get me to that level. It was like it opened up a whole new like emotional range. It was so bizarre. And I'd have really bad cystic acne whilst when you're in your early 20s, starting a new job when you have like acne like a teenager. It was really hard. It was really not my confidence. So that was really difficult. And when I asked to get it removed, they said it was worth all my side effects, which imagine like literally hurting my, obviously accidentally, but hurting my partner was not something I thought was worth not getting pregnant. To me, that was like intervention stage, like that's terrible. So so we just ignored it and decided to get it taken out, and everything went back to normal. It was just like, and I'm sure Joel is very happy that was taken out, because obviously that was an awful period. And but also I forgot to mention, when I asked to get it taken out, I was also told that I had the Marina coil, but my current version of it had actually been discontinued, and they didn't offer that one anymore. And the new one had far less side effects, but I wasn't allowed to have mine like replaced until I'd finished the 5 years, which again is just awful. Like if someone's having a reaction to something and there's a better version, surely that's like a no-brainer. Like I know obviously there's stress on the NHS, and I'm sure that came into it, but again, that to feel disempowered and not yourself, and then to not be offered the better alternative, I think is really difficult. And obviously all these experiences has led me to make these, like I said, like when you asked me about if I wanted to be an entrepreneur as a child, like no, it would never occur to me. It's like all these different experiences that I've gone through that has led me to just want to give women who have had my experience, because again, I'm definitely not against hormonal contraception. For some women it's great. I've got friends who it's been great for, but I just want to cater to those people who are like me, who struggled, and I don't want people to think like, I'm so glad I made that decision to come off it, but it was so hard to go against doctor advice. Like that was really terrifying. I'd never gone against doctor advice before. Obviously, again, not suggesting people go against doctor advice, but for me, it was the better decision. And actually, when I got my coil removed, the doctor, there was a different doctor. She was really lovely about it and said I made the right decision. So again, I think maybe if you get a bad response, try a different doctor. But it's hard, and I think again, I don't think a lot of people know that women are going through these experiences. It is awful. It
is. That sounds like it was a really rough journey, and I think the fact that they discontinued it, like you said, it spoke volumes. So was it that the non-hormonal version wasn't available to you when you first got the first one fitted?
So I've got a whole story about this. So basically okay, so it's a long story. Have you got time? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay.
So basically, long story, but I was with a different partner at the time, and I was at university, and my granddad had just died, and I was on the week break of the pill, which now it's coming out that you don't actually have to have the week break. So again, things change, and that's another thing that women should be aware of. If you're on the pill, you do not need to have the week break. But anyway, so I was on the week break, and my granddad died, and I basically was so knocked by that, and so it was so painful that I forgot to start taking it again, which is totally understandable. A lot going on, completely forgot to take it.
100%.
Yeah. And then I went to the doctors, and they said, you're most likely definitely pregnant. And I was, how old was I then? 19. And that was so terrible. It was so terrible.
That's so scary.
Yeah, it was really awful. And I don't know why, it was such an overreaction as well. I was 4 days over the week break. It's very unlikely I was pregnant. Obviously, everyone knows this, but it does take a bit of time for your hormones to balance after being home. It was very unlikely. So I don't know why that woman decided to put the fear of God in me after all my stuff with my granddad as well. Awful. Anyway, so what happened was they gave me the morning after pill, but they also said, just because it's kind of like past that time where I might have already, because obviously I don't think people know this as well, is that the morning after pill stops you from ovulating. It's not a form of abortion. So if I'd already ovulated, that would not have done anything. So they also suggest that you use, you have a hormonal coil put in. I can't remember why. I can't remember what it does. I think it's maybe stops implantation. I'm not sure. I don't want to say because I might be completely wrong. But basically, it's seen as an emergency method as well. So I basically was rushed to have that put in. So there was never a I would never have chosen to get one otherwise, because I don't really like intrusive kind of procedures like that. It was never really something I considered. But because of that whole experience, it's been a long journey, let's just say, from starting the business and all this. But yeah, so it was very rushed, and I got it put in, and it was all, and again, to have to put it in after it being kind of like you've made a terrible mistake, you might be pregnant, you have to get this done, that was awful as well. And then for that to be really painful was really hard. So yeah, that's I didn't choose it. Like, I probably would have chosen a non-hormonal coil if I was going to get one. But that's why, because that, again, I bet there's other women who've had that experience where they've been kind of pressured by doctors to get one as a emergency method. But anyway, it turned out I wasn't pregnant, so I shouldn't have worried. I knew things sometimes you do have to listen to your intuition. I kind of knew it was unlikely, but like I say, the doctor put the fear of God in me, and it was awful. But yes, that's how I got a call, which in the end it led me to the business, so I can't be too angry, but I do see the injustice and everything that happened in that stage. So yeah.
I think that's amazing. I think there's two things you could take from your story. Is that sometimes a bad scenario could actually lead to a better outcome.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And also to listen to your intuition.
Yes, that's my biggest thing. Definitely listen to. Yes, just to expand on those 2 points more, because I love that you put something up there. It's so true. But yeah, we'll listen to your intuition. That's another reason why I didn't know for a fact at first that it was the hormonal contraception causing my side effects. And again, my intuition told me, and I went to the doctors and had it confirmed. So definitely, I think definitely listen to your body is so important. And what's the first one again? Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely think that as well. Like, if you have a bad experience happen to you, you can sometimes turn it into a positive thing. And I think that is so empowering to take kind of like your darkest moments and make them into something beautiful. So yeah, if I can make someone else going through this whole journey make that life easier, or even hopefully, like, that's my big thing about the puberty box as well that I'd love to do, just give proper information about contraception methods. Maybe not puberty, but maybe like you could choose, because again, we were talking about this, but you don't want to put it on young people too soon and put like not force them into that area of their life too soon. But I definitely want to educate people that the pill is not like the perfect option. Like, you should look around. I definitely think with my own children, I would really want them to try different things, and not just think that's the only one, because yeah, I would want to save my children. And my mum actually says to me she feels really guilty about it all, because she wasn't against me going on the pill, but now obviously I wouldn't be angry at her at all. But yeah, I think I'd have liked a little bit more education. But the thing is, I don't think my mum could have given me at the time. But I think it's important for parents is just because you can trust your own intuition about your contraception method as well. And I think I knew when I was younger, I kind of knew I didn't want to be on it, but it's what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I think you made a really interesting point there, because you highlighted something that I didn't even think of, which is because you didn't get that really in-depth conversation and education at home, you were literally depending on a stranger to tell you what to put into your body.
Exactly. And it was a male doctor as well. Like, I'm not saying obviously they don't know as much, but
no, that makes a massive difference.
Yeah, I took advice from someone who'd never had to have that thought about his own body. I wouldn't know what it's like to be on different things. I think that's really interesting. And so
the relatability factor would have been at 0 at that point.
Exactly, yeah. And like, I wish to be honest, I don't remember really having a conversation with my mum about contraception, really. But I wish I did, because the whole reason I'm alive is because my mum was on the pill and then found out about blood clots. Like, at the time, it was like a big deal. I think it was in the 90s, it was a big deal about a lot of women having blood clots because of the contraception pill. So she came off it and accidentally got pregnant with me. But I wish I talked to my mum about it, because I don't think my mum would have actually been that positive about the pill. And yeah, it was, I can't remember why. I think honestly I went to the doctors and it was like, you were of age, go on the pill, which is really bad. It should have been in my own time. Like, I didn't have sex till I didn't have sex first time until I was 16, so that's 2 years after that point. Like, why the hell was I putting synthetic hormones in my body for 2 years for no reason? Like, I didn't have troubles with my periods, there was no reason why that should have been happening. But yeah, I wished I had that conversation. I think that's another thing that parents can take away. Maybe it's better to have those conversations. Like, don't fear them. Like, yeah, my mum could have really offered me some like sage wisdom, and it's interesting that she had a bad experience, I've had a bad experience, and we never really talked about it until obviously the business started, and now she can't talk about it.
No, it's definitely, and it's a part of parenthood. as well. I think people bring children into the world and they forget that they're not going to be children forever.
Yeah.
So it's like they are going to become teenagers one day, which means they're going to be facing the pressures that teenagers have to face.
Yeah.
And a part of parenting is being there to hold their hand whilst they go through those pressures, because the world is going to be pulling them in all different types of directions. And I guess a lot of parents of the past were not thinking in that sort of way.
Yeah.
But they are essentially that is what they're there for.
Yeah.
So to ignore that big part, it's almost like saying, oh, I don't want to have a conversation about food, so I'm just not going to give them any.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're going to go out and they're going to get food from somewhere, do you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and you like we were talking the other time about how if they're not getting the information from us, they're getting the information from their friends who don't know better. I remember having conversations now about, because I've always been really flat-chested, about my friends saying I should get pregnant to have bigger boobs. Like, that is the kind of ways like a children's mind
think. Yes.
It's absolute nonsense. Like, even if your friends, maybe they have parents that do talk to them, like, still that's not enough. Like, guarantee you have so much privilege.
Yeah, and I think I told you when we was having that conversation on the phone that I had a friend that was pretty much making fun of me for being a 14-year-old virgin.
Yeah, which what?
Like, I'm sorry, like, sorry that I'm a child, like. But honestly, you know, she was.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, at that age now, you know, when you're like, that to us, that's so young.
It's like, so super young.
So young. You're obviously not in that space at all. Like, I know some people are, but like the majority, no. That's what
yeah, exactly. Like, I wasn't even dating or anything. And just for a bit more context, this particular friend, you know, we're not friends now. I mean, you know, she's cool. I think we follow each other on Instagram, but you know, we're not in each other's lives like that. And I have nothing against her either, because she was a child. You know, but she was like a school year ahead of me, and she was a lot more advanced, so she was sexually active, and she had already had like multiple boyfriends and stuff. And I feel like this is exactly why it's important for parents to intervene, because there was a little bit of a voice in my head that was like, oh, is there something like wrong with that? Like, it didn't make me want to have sex, thankfully, but it did make me feel a little bit like there was something wrong with me almost.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so this is going a bit darker with it, but I had a lot of experiences in the high school where I was sort of I want to be careful with taking advantage of, but definitely had situations like I had a time where all my male friends used to like touch my bum, which at this age now, obviously again it's that unlearning, and to have to be like, looking back now, what was that and why was that happening, and why were no like teachers intervening with that? But again, I don't think obviously I'm not going against my parents' parenting, because they were amazing and I'm so grateful for them, but I just didn't think they themselves knew. Like, my mum has had so many things like that happen to her, like obviously in much worse cases. So again, like, how she didn't know this information for herself, but I didn't know that was wrong. And it definitely made me feel uncomfortable. It definitely sexualized me at a young age, which again I was not ready for. And I think it led to other situations when I was older, where like now looking back, I've been like, oh my god, I was so young. Like, I remember being in a club when I was like 17, and this guy who I didn't know coming behind me and touching my, how do I say this, my intimate area when I was at a club when I was 17, and this man must have been like, what, like 40, 50. And I remember at the time I just blocked it out, and it wasn't until years later actually, like, I remember talking about the night and not bringing that up. Whilst now, if that happened to you in a club, you'd be like that would be like mad, and you would be really angry about that. And I honestly, from when it stopped, I didn't think about it. But again, it's just those small things, like they were touching my bum when I was little, not little, when I was like teenage years. But then I went to a club and like that happened, and I didn't. At no point have I like said anything about it. But again, it definitely knocked my confidence, because if you let someone treat you like that, there is that voice like, I deserve this, I am kind of lesser, which and it's interesting that I just never told my parents about that, which I would be really worried if my children didn't talk to me about things like that, because I like, obviously you'd hate to hear it, but you at least could be like, that was wrong. That's not like, I have those conversations with my mum where she tells me stuff about her life, like from her past, and I'm like, that was wrong. And I'm having to teach her about her own experiences. And it's just, yeah, I feel obviously her situation is much worse than mine, but I do feel for just the different women, like, because it's as well, these experiences are so normal. Like, I am not in any way kind of like special for having these experiences. It's universal, like, it's very part of normal life. But I wished I had that clear message that was not okay. I was very much able to say to those boys, please stop touching me. But I never did. I never even got angry at the guy in the club. I just kept trying to move away. Whilst it's annoying. I think if you think about if a woman was doing that to a man, the man would eventually get angry and like shout. But whilst I was just hiding away and trying to just keep getting away from this person. And it just, I obviously, because I've not had the knowledge or the confidence, I took the behaviour as a sign I deserved it, rather instead of like getting angry that this person was doing this inappropriate thing.
Yeah. I mean, in all fairness to you, I feel like that sounds a bit more like a societal issue rather than, you know, because the thing is that I feel like a lot of the way how we look at things has changed now. So things that we were okay with in the past, I feel like we're now, I think the Me Too movement kind of helped usher that new wave of like consciousness into the atmosphere where people were like able to go, oh, actually, this is my body and you're crossing a boundary.
Well, it's like I can't remember which actress it was now, but there was an actress basically learning the word rape and realizing she was raped.
Oh wow.
I can't remember who it was. I'm thinking Tippi Hedren, but I don't think it was. But she was raped by Clark Gable, who was just like everyone, like, he's like a famous movie star, like, from the time, and like everyone, you know, he was in Gone with the Wind, like everybody.
Right. Oh yes.
He's very loved. I think it was him. I should probably check that, because I don't want to be like saying someone did it.
Just throwing his name in the dirt.
I think it was him. I'm pretty sure. I may have to double check. But yeah, imagine being in your like 80s, 90s and just realizing that, like you said, that's just, to me, when you were saying that, I was just like, that is a perfect example in my head of how times have changed. That she actually, because I think she got pregnant from it, and it ruined her career, but she was like devastated. And I might have been getting these actors and actresses.
I was going to say, let me maybe just search up their names so that we can just clarify for context, because we don't want to be like throwing an innocent person's name under the bus. So what was it? What's his name again?
And it's Clark Gable. So
Clark Gable. I love how you can just find information on your phone now so easily.
So yeah, it was Clark Gable, but it wasn't. I can't remember the actress I said, but it's Loretta Young. He date raped her.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I think she got pregnant for it. Yes, and had his daughter. Yeah.
Oh, so she did. However, so he never acknowledged her. He had to admit that he had to lie to Kay privately and that he had lied to the public for decades. So is it because he was like married already?
I think so, yeah. Well, as well, it came from rape, which is awful. Well, I think
that in itself is a reason to like not speak up, I guess, isn't it?
Well, I remember reading about it as well, and she blamed herself for ages by thinking she'd led him on or kind of given, which is a story so many women have told.
Yes, I also think that because it was like, when did it actually happen? In the 1930s?
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a very interesting time in society as well, because men were always right. And it wasn't until I was watching the season of when I was watching Mad Men, and I was like everything there was so much sexism, and obviously we all know that sexism has got a little bit better over the years, but you know, to actually see some of the scenes and what things were considered acceptable, and that was in the 60s. So if we're going further back to the 30s, it must have been even worse.
It's, you know, some people are still, are they still alive at that time? I don't know, maybe some, but like that's like when my grandparents were young and like not young, a little bit, around that time. It's I can't believe women lived through that. Like, they must have had so much internalized anger about their treatment. It's just,
I feel like now if it's done, it's more subtle.
That's what this is. In some ways, obviously I don't want to say it's just as bad, but in some ways it's more difficult because you're constantly being like, is this right? Like, am I right in thinking,
is this happening?
Yeah, it's constantly like, and I think like so many experiences I've had where I'm actually saying to myself, like, I have to work out if something was wrong. Like, I think as well, you have a lot of, to give it, sorry, I'm telling so many personal anecdotes here, but when I was at uni one time, I was kind of, I was think dating, it wasn't even dating someone, kind of having like a flirtation with one of our friends. Anyway, and I went to bed, and obviously I was in a student flat, so there's like loads of people there, but he didn't live here, this guy. But he came into my room, and the lights were off, and I was asleep. And my, again, which is, I wouldn't act like that now, and it just shows my vulnerability and my kind of youth at this stage. So when he came to my room, I just pretended to be asleep, just like held it up, pretended to be asleep. And he got into bed and was like wiping his genitals on my back. And so I was like, oh my God, this is awful. Anyway, so I told my group of friends that were like girls and boys the next morning, and was basically told to shut up about it and don't ruin the group and not mention it. And again, so for ages I was like, I thought, not that I was in the wrong, I thought I was in the wrong for bringing it up. I thought I was in the wrong for holding on to it. And yeah, but now, like, when I look back, it's just like, why was no one shocked? That is awful thing for someone to happen to someone. And to be honest, I like carried on like having this flirtation with him afterwards, because no one had, it seemed like I was making a fuss over nothing, like how they reacted. That was like, what, maybe six years ago now, so not even that long ago. Yeah, and it's
you were essentially told to like get over it, weren't you?
Yeah, and I had that ingrained guilt about it. Like, even like you say, like now we still it's so like that. And I know that doesn't seem subtle, but I think when it comes to like, I think that's why it's such a problem with like I don't know, what's the phrase, women getting sexually exploited, like something happening to women at universities, is because there's like context of like free for all kind of sex in university in this way, which is really positive. But there is also that chance like a lot of women are getting hurt in these kind of environments, and the fact that no one said to me that was wrong when they should have done, it did make me feel like it was my fault. And like that's why I kind of continued the flirtation with afterwards. There's now when I look back, I'm really angry at I shouldn't be angry at myself, but you do, because you just I guess it's more like my kind of older self wanting to help my younger self. But yeah, that is a little thing that I'm worried about with universities, is that a lot of women are like, it's quite universal that you have so many stories from different people at that time. And it's worrying though, because you'd think, I don't know, there's this documentary a while ago where they talked to like younger kind of boys in schools, and they notice there's definitely a change in kind of attitude. So that gives me hope. But it is really, in our generation there's still these problems. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like in that scenario, you pretty much did what women are told to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, if something happens, speak up, tell somebody that you trust, tell your friends, whatever. And that's exactly what you did. And because you were kind of shut down, you then weren't able to go and seek further support and advice, because by that point, you were kind of led to believe that you were in the wrong. So instead of actually being able to get the support that you needed, it was kind of just like tucked away, like rubbed, brushed under the carpet. And then, you were then in a position to have to then go on to interact with this young man who should have really had at least a tough conversation given to him. And, not by you, but by, it would have been nice if another guy could have just turned around and him been like, that wasn't okay,
That's especially, I think at the moment with this conversation around Russell Brand and that I can't remember his name, that comedian going on that documentary and calling him out. I don't think men know how important it would be and how grateful kind of women would be, but it is so much as like, I know it's awkward to have it. It's so awkward to have those conversations, but like I even would have been happy with one of those men just like saying, yes, that was wrong to me, like,
yeah, just to validate your feelings.
Yeah, like even saying it to him would have just been, I know it sounds weird to be so grateful. The idea of that would make me so grateful. And it's weird that would never, it seems so impossible for that to happen, which shows how far we need to come. And even the idea of him apologizing to me, like, that would have been like an absolute, do you mean, like, I think it would have made a lot of things in my life, like, that came later, easier, because that was, and even that is, some women have had much worse than that. Compared to other women's experience, that is nothing. And that's really had an impact on me. So I just think, like, if you're at university now and you see something that's inappropriate or you hear about something, please call it out, because even though it's a really awkward conversation now, you will have like someone's gratitude forever, and even like maybe his as well. Like if this guy kind of like, maybe, I don't know, maybe he didn't realize, I don't know, but you don't know, that could have led on to him doing something worse to someone else. And I think sometimes people need to be called out or they keep going. And I'm not saying he did do anything, I have no idea, but it could have started, it could have made a big, I think you have no idea what influence you can have.
100%.
Yeah, so it's a conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that young man would have probably just gone on assuming that he did absolutely nothing wrong. And this is the issue, because like you said, it's more likely to happen again because he's not learned anything. Yeah. And I think that was a really good example of how men underestimate their superpower as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like as this really small thing, like the fact, and this is so small, and obviously like this is just how a partner should be. Like this is nothing to be like I'm proud of, but I am grateful for it. The fact that Joel was so supportive of me in my hormone conception, like the whole journey, and supported me, and you know, like being there for me, and like he'd always been a classic guy, not really wanting to use condoms, but for him to just change that for me, and obviously that's not a big deal. He should have done that. I'm not saying all of this is really good, but it just shows like in any conversation, in conversations about like sexual assault, in conversations to do with me about like contraception method, men do really have a superpower in these conversations, because I think part of our socialization as women kind of makes us vulnerable, and we're kind of I think a lot of women would say as well, like we don't react by getting angry. There's something built in us to kind of not react. And I think obviously it's shock. It's kind of like, you know, it is that thing as well that we don't want to make trouble. I think that's so built into us, like don't make trouble, don't cause a fuss, just don't say anything. And men don't have that. And if you can use that superpower of just having a different kind of socialization to help these help women who are socialized in this way, it is amazing. I think that would make such a difference, and especially in the context of universities as well. I just think it's I worry about it. I do.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think so. Men should definitely lean into that authority that they naturally have, and use it to protect their friends, protect their family members. Like it is a superpower that they don't lean into enough, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I was even impressed that Joel like calls out one of his friends for cheating, and I was like really impressed by that. And then you have to ask yourself, why am I impressed by that?
No, that should be normal. Like
exactly.
And not cheating on your partner is like bare minimum requirements.
Exactly. So like I was thinking about this recently. I was like, why am I proud of him? Like he's doing the bar for men is so low. It's like with dads as well. The bar for being a dad is so low, whilst women have to do everything. Yeah. It like all you're asking for in that situation is like you stand up for someone who's like hurting, or you just say when something's wrong. But like the fact that comedian who stood up against the Russell Brand thing, and the amount of hate he got for that, it just it should, mostly from like men as well. Like don't, like he's doing something amazing, being like, I feel like sometimes men worry that they're being targeted, and that's not the case at all. And like, it's, you know, sometimes when you pluck out statistics, like maybe there was one time when a woman called someone out and it wasn't true, you can't, like, that does not mean that happens a lot. That the amount of times that it actually happens compared to someone's made it up is, do you know, there's no comparison. Like that is not an argument. That is not a reason not to do something. And I've lost my train of thought, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I just want to just reel it back in again to women in birth control.
Yeah.
If there was any advice that you'd give to a woman who may be in transition of changing it up, or they might not be on it at the moment, but they're thinking about getting back on it, what would your advice be to women, you know, concerning their sexual health?
Yeah, so firstly, as we were saying before, listen to your intuition. There's a lot more knowledge there than you know, a lot more wisdom. But also there's this site called The Lowdown who I've been talking to. They're just they're unbelievably amazing. So they have all the different kind of birth control options, and then women rate them and show their experience. So it's got like rated experience, like all the different ones like rated based on women's experience. It gives you side effects, tells you all about it. So it's basically the education that we all should have had when we were first introduced to contraception. Like I think that again is something that I'm excited to, like, if I have a daughter, like, for her, like, to have that I didn't have, like, that is the first way, that's the first point I would show her when she was started wanting to have that conversation. It's such an amazing tool, and you can hear other people's experience. It's also got on there like women trying for a baby, which I love. I love that those conversations are mixed as well. I feel like we're always separating things, and it's like it's the same sort of experience. So it's a great tool as well if anyone's trying for a baby. But yeah, that's definitely where I'd push first, because there's information in there that is so important, like all written by women. You can have like little stories about their experiences on it. And I guess as well, don't be afraid to keep trying. Like, don't if you had a bad experience with something, it doesn't mean that you're going to keep having bad experience in other ones. Like, keep trying, and don't be embarrassed to keep going back to your doctors and wanting to try different things as well. If you are a bit embarrassed, you can order birth control from different websites now, so you don't have any kind of like awkward experiences. But yeah, definitely try things. I think one thing I'm really interested in is fertility tracking methods, which I used for ages. I find that amazing and so empowering for women, because we're learning things like we're only fertile for 6 days of our menstrual cycle, which I think that information is so important. And just learning about how our own body works, I just think it's really cruel that women have been kept from this knowledge for so long, and it's about our own bodies. So I really think it should be part of our early sex education, to be honest. But I dream. But yeah, so that's a really interesting method as well, that I think if you're interested, and it's much more of like you have to learn quite a lot about it, and you have to, you know, like be very like, it can't be like you're going to forget to do your temperature one day. You have to be very on it. But it is a really interesting method, and that's the one I'm quite excited about for the future. And obviously you can use that with condoms, which is what I did for a long time. So yeah, I'd say be excited about that conversation. It is exciting. It's really empowering. We've got so many amazing female-founded companies that can help you on your journey. So just to keep asking questions, to keep trying, you'll find that.
I think that was great advice, and I feel like you also touched on a very important point, that schools could incorporate the teaching as well. And I agree with that. It's a bit of a tricky subject, because some parents would probably feel like, I don't want the school to put ideas into my child's head.
Yeah.
But if it's done correctly, and if the school communicates with the parents, you know, through emails, and let them know what is going to be coming up on the school's timetable, and if they're teaching it to children who are, you know, in their teens, or children that are like preteens who are about to have their period and stuff, it needs to be age appropriate depending on the child. And I think that could be a really great way to sort of work alongside children's parents to help educate children. And I say work alongside because I don't think that the school should be a replacement of the education that children can get at home.
Yeah.
But I feel like if done correctly, I think it'd be nice to kind of work it hand in hand, so that especially for children who may not have as many resources at home, like maybe they are children of immigrant parents or something, they might have to rely more on their education system to provide that guidance. So it has to be done in a very careful way, and it probably has to be catered differently depending on the child's circumstances as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that would really, because then what you're doing is you're sending these children out into the world once they leave school, and they're going to be armored with this information.
Yeah, definitely. It is so important. And, you know, like I keep going back to it, but like the STD rates are crazy. Like, it is so common, and it's actually a really awful experience, like to have to go to doctors. It's a stigmatized experience, you know, like with, I can't remember which one it is, I think it's gonorrhea. You have to have an injection, which again is quite an intrusive experience. If you can avoid and as a side note, with chlamydia, it can affect future fertility for women, which is like, imagine making a mistake when you're younger and it impacting whether or not you can have a child. It's just, I would not want any woman who wanted children to have to go through that. But yeah, it's so important. And I think if you're like, oh, I don't want my child to know about this, like I don't want them like knowing about sex, that this is where it could lead, a much worse place. Like, it's, and I think as well we've got to say, like, if you teach them the stuff, doesn't mean they're going to have sex. Like, it does not mean they're going to have sex. Does not. I think that's the fear. And it's just like, no, not all. Like, I was exposed to it when I was younger, and it didn't make me have sex. Like, actually, it gives me a funny anecdote that my mum gave me the 50 Shades of Grey books to read because I wanted to be a writer at the time, and she was like, "It's a female writer, you know, like it's inspiring." And I actually lost my virginity around that time. And my mum, when I told her, she burst out crying because she thought it was her fault because she gave me those books. Now I can very easily say it was not because of those books that I lost my virginity. So there's nothing, I don't think there's anything really parents can do to like, there's nothing you're going to say that's going to push them to do it. Like,
No.
I think they have their own strengths. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't see them as weaklings who are just going to like follow it. They know themselves. And I think by having these conversations, it does the opposite effect. It gives, it gives individuals confidence to do it when they're ready.
Yes. A sense of affirmation.
Yeah, it stops those conversations. You're not getting your information from the people around you. Do you know what I mean? Like the information you've got, like you will get, like at school, they should be saying that normal ages, healthy ages, like it's fine. Like people lose their virginity at 25 and live happy, comfortable lives. It's not by making it this like secret taboo. It's like with like young people who are smoking. If you make it a secret taboo thing, they'll want to do it. Just make it normal, make it healthy. Like then it's not going to be as much as this pressure thing, or like you have to do by this time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it just goes back to like what I was talking about with the peer pressure thing. It's not that your conversation with your child is going to make them give in to peer pressure, but it is actually going to let them know, don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong. There is nothing wrong with you not being ready, and your friend is just being a bit of an asshole. You know.
Just remember, if you're a child, like not, I don't know if there's any children listening. Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Maybe teenagers this could still apply to though.
Yeah, I'd say like, yeah, just do it when you're ready. And like, if people are pressuring you, it's definitely their own projections. Like, to give you a little insight, when I was at university, I had sex once, and we were all in a circle, and there was definitely people, but people were basically lying. I added like 3 more times onto the how many times I've had sex. Everybody's lying. Like, just do it when you want to do it, and don't take like what someone says as like fact, because I think it's something where we're all trying to be cool and like say the right thing. So it's, yeah, just do it when you're ready, and don't be ashamed of that. To be honest, there were some people who said that when I was at university, like they were virgins, and like it was something that we were like, that's really impressive, like confident to say, like it impressed us. And I felt like, oh, and I tried to add on more to seem cooler. Like it made me feel bad. So just, yeah, honestly, people are impressed by truth and confidence, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And there are people who are actually in their 20s, like what you just said, early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, who are still virgins.
Yeah.
And I just think, regardless of what your history is, just own it. And don't feel like you're obligated to tell everybody either, because like that is your story anyway. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you can be both liberated and still keep some of your stories to yourself. I feel like two things can exist at once.
Yeah, exactly. I always like to say it as I know someone who's still a virgin. They're not my age, they're much younger. But the way I try to make them feel better is in their case, they're very much waiting for the right person. Whilst there's other people who like to trial and error it, and you're just missing out all the trial and error. So you're not behind, you're not anything like that. You're just getting right to the right answer straight away, whilst everyone else is kind of just trial and error in it. That's how I like to think of it. So you're not behind. You just get into the answer quicker.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so before we close then, because I feel like that we've covered a lot of the topics, and it doesn't even feel like it's been a few hours. It's just like flown by. But I feel like that's a really nice way of looking at it, and I feel like if there's anything that anyone needs to take away from this episode, is I definitely think it's just to have a sorry, it just logged me out. I don't even know at which point they cut me out of. Yeah, so I was going to say, I feel like the best takeaway from this episode is to be more sex positive and have a positive attitude towards it when it comes to yourself and when it comes to other people. And let's just be open about it as well, and finding the right advice, and that's what I really hope for teenagers and young people, that they have those resources where they can speak to somebody and feel safe and feel like they are able to kind of take control over their body.
Absolutely. That just reminds me of one more thing, is thinking, if you're worried about having these conversations with your child, you just got to think that you are someone there who's not a threat to them, who will ensure their safety, who will ensure their protection. There's not that many people in your child's life who is that like conscious of their safety. You are definitely the best person to do it. And I'm not saying obviously someone else is going to do it, but you can definitely offer them the safest advice. So don't think of it as a way of like, you're rude about it, you're going to say the wrong thing. Because like, yeah, you are such a gift to your children, and giving them that information is such a gift.
100%. And children trust their parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Like majority of the times. Yeah, like you have the biggest influence on your child. Don't lean into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Lean into that. Like, I feel like people in life, we forget we all have superpowers.
Yeah.
You know, as women, we have our feminine superpowers. Men, they have their masculine superpowers. They can come and save the day, and they're physically stronger. Parents, they have their superpowers over their children. That's why it's so disappointing and heartbreaking when we don't see eye to eye with our parents, because there's going to always be a part of us that seek their validation and approval, and they were the first people that they looked after us, they nurtured us, they bathed us, they clothed us. So it's only natural that when we do become teenagers, we want to hear their advice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you've got to remember, as a parent, like, this, what you're telling them is going to be in their head for their life. So if for now you're like, okay, my child is a teenager, I don't want them having sex, so I'm going to tell them I don't want them to have sex, sex is bad, everything like that. That's not just going to be with them when they're in their teenage years. That's going to stay with them through their 20s and 30s and 40s. Do you want them to have the voice in their head saying that sex is bad, don't have sex, in their 40s? Like, not at all. Like, of course you don't. So you've got to be so careful about, you want to say something that ensures, like, you can say, like, I don't think, like you do when you're ready, and maybe you're not ready right now, but just make sure that you're saying something that will ensure that they will have like a healthy, like, happy sex life, and not have to carry shame, like what so many like older adults have to do to this day. Like, and I think, again, like, I can see that in the male investors who are laughing at how many times a year people are having sex. Like, you can see it in them. Like, why would it be funny? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so on what you're putting in their head.
100%. And it goes back to the conversation of being sex positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because being sex positive means that you are essentially positive. We have a positive attitude surrounding sex, which means that the conversation is going to be so much more in depth and so much more meaningful. And like you say, it's about keeping your children safe at the end of the day. Exactly. And when I say children, I'm not talking about small children. I'm talking about, like, of age teenagers. But it's important, if you're a parent who has a teenager, it's important that you keep them safe and you keep them informed and knowledgeable. And it also, as well, when you was talking, it kind of reminded me of the AIDS pandemic as well. The AIDS epidemic, sorry, like with all the men who were passing away. And one of the biggest reasons that a lot of them were so promiscuous and careless, and also didn't tell anybody, is because they were living their lives in a closet, because they had been told that gay is wrong, it's disgusting. So it kind of made that internalize it in that way. And I can't remember where I saw it, but there was somebody who lived through that time, and he said that used to be a way for a lot of guys to come out. They only ever came out by saying, I had AIDS, and at the time there wasn't as much information, where people didn't realize that, like, heterosexual people could get it. So it was known as sort of like I'm going to put quote unquote the gay disease. So if you said that you had it, then your family knew that you was essentially like one of them. So, and then that is a really extreme, but another great example of why it's important to be sex positive, and to not shame people with their sexuality, because those young men, I mean, it may have not been able to avoid the situation altogether, but if their attitude and thoughts towards sex was slightly different, their sex lives may have looked different. And they may have been able to live a different life that didn't sort of lead them down that sort of path.
Yeah, such a good example of it. Yeah.
Great. I'm glad that you think that, because I was like, I'm not sure whether I'm like going too far left here.
You smashed it. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I've never thought about it like that, and that is so true. And yeah, your heart like hurts for them, and it's so true. Like, and obviously, like being gay and having that kind of shame, like there's for heterosexual couples, that's obviously like a microcosm of their experience when you just feel shame around sex. But yeah, it's just such a good example. Yeah, it's sad.
Okay, but let's just end on a more positive note. And could you tell me, like, what are some of the things that you hope to achieve or to do in the new year? Because 2024 is around the corner. So have you got anything exciting planned? And what do you hope to see at the end of 2024?
By the way, I feel more positive about 2024? I don't know, I just got a feeling. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I feel like, I get that feeling as well. I feel like it's going to be a good year. I feel like we're getting further and further into the future. Like 2024 just sounds...
I know, yeah.
It just sounds so futuristic. Yeah. It's also going to be the year that I'm going to turn 30 as well.
Exciting.
So that is crazy.
So...
I know. So it's going to be in October. So it's not till towards the end of the year. But yeah, it is exciting. It's exciting and scary. I got to make myself proud, because like I feel like you can't be. I mean, it's the year of 30, so I need to manifest a lot so that I can, look back and reflect.
What the good is, on your 30th birthday, you can be like, did it all, get all like all. It's a good like goal. Do you know what I mean? To get it done by. No, that's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just to pull on from that, I was saying earlier to you about how last year I set myself 2 goals, which was to launch my business and make more time for my friends and kind of try and like reconnect with more people. And I was happy to think it like this time. I was like, oh, I have actually managed that. That's so brilliant. So for 2025, I was definitely thinking I need to stretch it a bit. Like I need to do some like proper goals, because maybe this will work. I got quite excited by it, because I was like, those things easily happened. Maybe I can dream further, and maybe doing it this way will ensure, like more exciting things happen. And I definitely, for any listeners, like definitely do that. And like, there's also that grape thing. I think it's like a Spanish tradition where you put grapes on like I don't know, you eat 12 grapes, but they all mean like something you want to achieve that year. And it's like by 12 you got to eat. Yeah, have you heard of that?
No, I've not, but it sounds really interesting. I think I might do that. If all you need is grapes, then
right. Yeah, so basically
pick them up.
We have like, I think it's supposed to be like for you've got like 12 of you, like what you want to achieve that year, and then I think it's like when the dongs of like turning 12 midnight on New Year's Eve happens, you've got to eat as many as possible, and however many you eat before the end of the dongs is like how many are going to happen, which is quite cool. Yeah, I think
it's really cool.
Yeah. That one. But yeah, so for next year, I think our biggest goal is definitely investment. So obviously after the incident last time, we had a break from it, and I was just so emotionally exhausted. It was nice to launch and have a little bit of success before trying again. So yeah, next year we're definitely trying again. I'm going for more kind of like female-founded investment companies, so fingers crossed. So hoping that could come through, because that would be huge. And if any entrepreneurs are listening and have the same situation of not being able to pay themselves a wage, they will understand my pain of having to live off no money for so long. So that is my biggest thing. If I got investment, I could pay myself a wage, and my life would become so much easier. So that was quite exciting. So I really hope that's my biggest goal for next year. And then also, I think we want to do the next order of condoms. So we've got a few things that we want to change. I won't reveal it yet, because we might. But we've got a few things that we're thinking about changing about them. We do want to bring out a lubricant. And I think we are thinking about starting our first few like vitamin supplements, but we'll see. Like fingers crossed, we don't know. But so it's all really exciting. I really hope, and like for like a personal thing, like, because I feel like you always got to have more in your life than business. So in a more personal way, I think one of the things as well is to keep the friendships now. Like last year was like reconnecting with old friends, but I think sometimes you forget, like you've got to put that time in. Like our lives are so busy, especially with people with kids. Our lives are so busy, but like it's not like when we were kids and we saw our friends every day. You've got to put actual like time and effort into friendships. So I think that's I really realized how much I needed them this year, and I was actually, to give you an example, I had a launch party and I'd leafleted, I'd sent out loads of emails, I'd done so much to try and get people to come to this launch party, got like in touch with influencers about it, and on the actual day, no one came. No one came except my friends, and well, my mum's amazing. She's like a proper amazing saleswoman, so she actually went out onto the street and was dragging people in. So the launch party actually was an amazing success, thanks to my mum, who's the most amazing woman ever. But to have all my friends there and them to travel so far to support me was such a huge, just amazing moment for me. It just made me realise that you've just got to really like care and protect your connections, because people are so important. And like at the end of the day, like the business doesn't love me back. Do you know what I mean? I can put my hands all into it, but it will never love me back. And that is the most important thing. And like on my deathbed, I don't think I'll be thinking about the business. I think I'll be thinking about the people, hopefully staring back at me. So that is my biggest thing. Just to like, I've always been really close with my family, and obviously Joel's amazing. So my friendships are just, I think that's one of my big personal goals for next year.
Okay, that's amazing. I think that's a really nice note to end it on. So what I'm going to do then is gonna link like your website. And this is in the description of this episode, so that listeners can find out more about your products and stuff. And I think that's a really nice way. And all the best of luck for your adventures in the new year. And I'm definitely going to be catching up because I want to like get an update and everything. So it'd be really great if you could return in maybe this time next year. We should do like like I've always said that there's a couple of guests that I would love to just like bring back on and like just catch up with them and like see what they're getting up to and see how much like things have progressed and things like that. So that'll be a really nice like full circle moment, because it's all about well-being, taking care of yourself, and just like you say, doing stuff consistently day by day. If you as long as you're consistent, in a year, who knows what you could achieve.
Exactly, definitely. It'd be exciting to see. Does your podcast, can you like comment on it?
Like leave comments on it?
I was just thinking if followers could like put on what their goals are, and it'd be cool to like see who like how many.
That is an amazing idea, actually. So I am going to start putting episodes on YouTube, so maybe on YouTube they can put their goals on, and Instagram as well. So I think that's going to be, so I'm going to keep this in, by the way. So I'm going to say, listeners, you've heard it here first. Mo wants to hear what your goals are. So did you say goals for next year?
Goals for next year.
Goals for next year. So everybody's got to participate and put down their goals for next year. I think this is a really fun way of looking at it, because I think sometimes we can feel really overwhelmed with like, I've got to achieve X, Y, and Z. But I feel like as long as you communicate with other people and do things consistently, you could definitely make it fun. And it could definitely be more doable and easier for you,
Hey, and if you complete them and you get back in touch with me next year, any of your followers who have completed their tasks, we'll send free condoms to celebrate. So
there we go. That is amazing. Okay, so giveaway. So this is going to be a giveaway episode.
Giveaway.
New Year's giveaway. Okay, you got to start the year right. Exactly. You might as well start off on the right foot. Okay, that is definitely going to be. We're going to have to like put this in the intro, because it's going to be a giveaway episode now.
I'm sorry for anyone who uses condoms. That's a rubbish prize, but it's all I have.
But I mean, if you don't, then you need to start. It's a request by Mo.
They're great.
It's definitely good as a backup, and like people think that that's like the only form, but you could be on birth control and still use them as well. So
or if you get them, give them to someone else who needs them.
Yes, exactly. No, I think that's a really nice note to end it on. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mo.
No, thank you for having me.
It's been a really great conversation, and yes, please stay in touch, and all the best for the new year. And for our listeners, I hope that you also have a nice new year and enjoy the rest of your week.